It begins.
Hello.
Hello.
Popping.
You beautiful black man. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
That's great.
I'm doing great.
You beautiful black
You
man.
beautiful black man.
How you doing?
Couple of beautiful black men is looking back at me.
What is it, Tuesday? What is today?
Is it Tuesday?
It's Tuesday the 24th. Dark day in America today.
All I can think about is how my laptop sounds like it's gonna lift off into the sky.
Yeah. It's been doing that.
Yeah.
Though.
Yeah.
Your laptop got asthma, bro.
It's got that buttery biscuit breath, you know.
Yeah. Buttery biscuits.
Pass me another.
Popeye's biscuits, no water.
Buttermilk biscuits. See, I got a drop for that. I could have dropped that.
You could have.
Yeah, you just regret being at the table immediately. Just immediately regret being at the table, man. Man, does it feel weird being over there?
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. Yeah.
You feel important? Like, do you feel like you're like more in focus, like less out the way than over there?
Yeah. I mean, I like hanging in the cut. You know what I mean? I like being in the background in the cut.
Yeah.
That's like my. Yeah. No, that's like my instinct in general. I feel like
just be in the
cut.
cut.
Light, my pretty brother. You know.
There's plenty of it.
Can you imagine if Umar specifically talked like that? Coming to the light, my beautiful brother.
My beautiful black brother.
My sexy chocolate brother.
I mean, he vanquished Kevin Samuels. We might have to thank.
Wait, really?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Wait,
Wait,
did he?
what?
Did they have? They had beef.
I'm just they had beef. Yeah.
Did they really?
Wow.
Is he not the one he's like turned up on? Like, I feel like he was one of the ones he turned up on and called like broke wannabe me's. But maybe I'm wrong. There's a lot of dudes out there, but
I don't remember that at all.
Oh, yeah. Were they linked up or something?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what happened.
I'm gonna start this disinformation campaign.
I'm not denying what you're saying.
Kevin Samuels talked shit about Dr. Umar. Dr. Umar vanquished him.
Wow.
He might have.
Wow.
Do you know what he said?
I'm gonna Google
this. This is disinformation. This is all misinformation. I don't mean any.
Okay, then carry on. Carry on.
Exactly. So we can thank Dr. Umar for kind of setting things right in that area.
Dr. Umar actually gave Kevin Samuels sickle cell.
That's fucked up.
Motherfuckers got sickle cell.
Yeah, I googled Dr. Umar Kevin Samuels, and the first thing that came up was a DJ Vlad video called Kevin Samuels on his beef with Dr. Umar Johnson.
It's true.
So this is definitely a thing.
Dr. Umar outlives again.
Wow. Dr. Umar lives.
I'm wondering what
Femi, is that his Yoruba name?
He has Is he actually Nigerian or does he? Okay.
No. I mean, he might be.
I mean, who knows?
Something like 60% of the slaves sent, but he is
it's
from Philly. I'm pretty sure.
Okay. So I hit an Essence article.
Aren't we all? Are we all from Philly?
At the end of the
long run.
I hit an Essence article, and the title is "The Woke-Tep YouTubian Wars Begin" as Dr. Umar Johnson calls out Kevin Samuels, and then the subtitle or the description rather is Dr. Umar Johnson called out the lifestyle consultant for his misogynistic commentary.
Let's get it.
Wow.
While Samuels called out Johnson's family life. Yeah, so
he took it way too far. He had to go.
Yeah, I'm wondering what it came down to.
I mean, I feel like my guess is he probably had something to say about Umar having two wives.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm seeing an embed.
Same wedding.
I mean, that's two more
Double
than him.
wedding.
You know,
Yeah.
he had to hate.
I'm seeing an embed for Instagram post from Dr. Umar Johnson, and in the post, yeah. See, this is worthy of a laptop for sure.
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna hold you.
Yeah.
Because it's a picture of him in a suit with his arms crossed like this. It's like at the top, it's tiny, and then it's like a giant Pan-African, like New African flag, and then all yellow text over the front of it talking about.
I'll read. Mutulu was here. These.
They wouldn't have any room. They wouldn't have any room.
He would be mediating at the very least.
Right. No, it says there There is a growing beta male YouTubian community that is creating a sector dedicated to slandering and criticizing black women who don't emulate Eurocentric standards of beauty and success.
Correct.
Unfortunately, many sisters have become prey for these coons due to an unconscious need for male validation. Black women, you don't need a man to validate your worth. Not wrong.
Not wrong.
Not wrong.
Look, Dr. Umar might be one of us. I'm not saying
Sans coons, but yeah.
Dr. Umar is very no.
No, we definitely
we've had this discussion.
Yeah, exactly. That's I was hoping this could be a jump off into a real analysis.
both
right.
these niggas are
Right.
Broken clocks conversation.
broken clocks.
That's exactly
and
what it is.
He hits it twice a day.
Yeah.
He does
Well,
hit
look, it's like from a black context, it's like worth talking about how many black men in particular, or any gender, are kind of like, maybe it starts out as a joke, like Umar Johnson to them, and then they're like pipelined into reactionary positions. Like, if there was data on that, I'd love to see it. Like, you know what I mean? It makes me curious, because it's that thing of like, you start to normalize reactionary people in positions, and like what can start off as like a it's aesthetics, it's just a whatever. I mean, it's like you see that with like right-wing white fascist shit. You know what I mean? It's like
between like the reactionary post 9/11 comedy to whatever the fuck Joe Rogan has got going on right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
I mean,
those comedians that bottomed out.
I mean, there's also a through line of just like comedians being straight up fascists, like outside of that, like Chris Cantwell did stand up, Kellyanne Conway did stand up, like
really,
yeah,
what,
yeah,
despicable
dog. It's a fucking
that's crazy.
It's a pipeline.
Nasty.
It's a real pipeline. It's like
nasty work.
One of the, I mean, there's this comic who I know from like being at New York Comedy Club, and The Stand, and just like she was already on all the like fascist shit, but like. This comic Chrissy Mayer was at the Capitol at January 6th, and was recorded a stand-up album, I think, called Live from the Capitol or some shit like that.
Baked Alaska is supposed to be funny. I mean, we have the right wing has these figures, and it's so normal for them like that.
You might want to move that
bottle
by the way
a little bit.
It's really normal for them, and it's been able to be mainstream for them. I was watching the Carlin.
Put your mouth up on the mic, my brother.
Put your mouth up on the mic, my brother.
Did you guys see the George Carlin American Dream thing on HBO?
I saw that it exists.
Is that a documentary or something?
Yeah, it's like a 4-hour.
Oh wow!
Documentary on the.
I definitely got to check that out.
Yeah.
Is it already out, or is it just like?
Yeah, it's already out.
Okay.
Both parts. But something I didn't know is that he kind of started out as a reactionary, and then
really,
yeah, man, like his early years in comedy, he started kind of talking shit about whatever the hippie left is at the time. But, he was very suit and tie, black and white TV comedian.
Right?
That's fucking kind of vibe, and then he becomes that hippie in the 70s, and if he hadn't, I think he could have been that, kind of white Dr. Umar, just repeating reactionary things to white people.
Right. He could have been a Bill
Maher. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Maher. Yeah.
It blows my mind. It blows my mind that, I guess it doesn't blow my mind that he has such a passionate following. But it's just
Maher?
But it's just so. It's always bizarre when you see a white man whose whole reputation is supposedly like logic, like the Logos. I'm the voice of reason. Yeah. But then you watch his like interpersonal on camera back and forth, and it's just like straw man after straw man. It's like he's not even like a. He's like, I'm just going to use my audience against you and make you look stupid to win the argument. It's like a liberal Ben Shapiro,
Yeah.
Ben Affleck, I didn't even know Ben Affleck had it in him, but like Ben Affleck stood up for Muslims to make Bill Maher look like.
I remember that. I vaguely remember that.
It was incredible. Like,
when was that?
This is before Trump. This is like Obama era.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like 10 years ago. And it's still one of like the biggest clips on Bill Maher's. I just unsubscribed from his YouTube because growing up, I was a Bill Maher watcher.
Right. My dad was into Bill Maher when I was a kid, so he indoctrinated me with that.
I think my mom sent me a Bill Maher clip like months ago, and I was like, he's an Islamophobe. I don't know.
He hates Muslims, and it's been like that for a while. And he kind of totes this, "Oh, I'm not white, I'm Jewish" bullshit. I smoke weed, I fuck black women.
Right,
But
right.
The Lisa Lampanelli line.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Shit's
God, that shit is so cringe.
What?
Lisa Lampanelli.
Oh yeah.
And like they mention it and every time she's in a roast panel or whatever, it's always just this.
I fuck black guys.
Yeah, it's like a staple, ongoing, long-running joke about the fetishization of black men.
Yeah.
Like,
it's
so bizarre.
How normal it
Right.
was. For
Exactly.
my
Yeah.
first years growing up watching Comedy Central, like as a 10-year-old, 2005, like man, that was absolutely normal, A-OK
Yeah.
comedy. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah.
to even bring it up would be like.
This is a bit of a swing back, but
Yes.
whenever I think of Ben Affleck, I think of about how his ancestors owned slaves.
I didn't even know that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't he just like say that unprompted at one point, or?
No, I think it was like a thing of like.
Oh.
He was supposed to have an ancestry or a Henry Louis Gates thing, and that he wouldn't let them air it or some shit because they found that out. It's like, dog, come on, man. Like, the cat is out the bag. You might as well just lean into it, and be like, hey, white supremacy ends now. The settler colonial project ends now with me, with my generation. Just come on. Just come on, man. Like, you don't run and hide like a coward from it. I mean,
that's
it's fucking real.
You go into everything with the Mark Wahlberg energy. You know? You're just like, it wouldn't have went down like that. If it was me, it wouldn't have went down like that.
Right.
And then you find that it would have went down like that.
It went down exactly like that.
It's exactly how it went down.
When your
with you involved.
That was there.
And I should have said enslaved Africans, not slaves, by the way.
You so much.
I'm a stickler for stuff like that, but
yeah.
Like it makes me kind of wonder. I'm curious, like what the rationale is when you sign up for a show and then you know that the information is gonna get out there, and then you're still like, no, like people aren't gonna talk. Like it already happened. We already the academics already went through the books. Like,
he doesn't want the clip. He doesn't want the
I guess is that it? Yeah, he probably had some type of reaction that right.
Like
it started just like.
Like when Zach Braff beat that kid up on Punk'd.
Oh my god!
I was thinking Indiana Jones, like touching the Ark of the Covenant, like just like, his body just starts.
Oh my god! Speaking of Punk'd, remember when they like tried to steal Kanye's film, like from his music video?
Oh yeah, I
vaguely.
It was so weird. Like that's not punk. Like that's not like a prank. Like,
right. That's theft. That's a crime.
I'm under contract from whatever record company.
Yeah.
This music video is $2 million.
Which was that the one with
I think it was Touch
Pamela
the Sky.
Anderson.
Touch the Sky, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Damn. Now I don't want to like rewatch the video and look for clues. Like I don't know. I feel like it seems like something. If I got punked on set, I would include it in the video.
Oh, I think it was Jadakiss pulled a gun out one time. Like, really, like didn't have the time for it. And I wonder, like, how many times have you put people in danger, Ashton? Like,
yeah.
And we have the same thing with the YouTube pranks gone wrong, and it's always a black dude just beating somebody's ass.
Yo, the YouTube pranks thing is like. It really obsessed me because these people like just instigate on the street and then call themselves comedians.
Let me instigate a black person and see what happens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Let me just go up and imply the N-word.
It's a prank.
Right. I don't give a fuck.
He has a real gun. It's not a prank.
Right.
Anyway.
I mean, you seeing some like the shit that consistently gets under my skin is like I see parents fucking with their kids on TikTok.
Oh, bro.
Like in ways that to me feel like brutal, like emotionally. Yeah. It's like their kid will be like 3 or 4. Like we're talking early developmental stages of life, and they're just like doing the most ridiculous shit for a laugh.
For
and then it's not just that, it's like you go to the comments and it's just grown ass adults just laughing their asses off.
Right.
And you're just like, This person probably just traumatized their kid.
Yeah. That's
for me,
yeah, right.
I feel like Jimmy Kimmel started that shit, or at least popularized it.
God, you're right.
He like
Right, no,
he
that's
did the
true.
whole, like,
That's true.
I ate your Halloween candy.
Right.
Hey, you remember when we went out and had a good time? And I ate all the candy.
one I'm thinking about, it was a black family. I just saw it like within the last 24 hours. Yeah, and it was like the mom was like, I'm calling the police on your sister. And this boy had to be like 3-4 years old or something. And he starts like, he's like on the verge of like crying.
He barely knows what that means. Like,
No, he did know. He's crying. Like he starts like, he's like the whole, yeah, that's the whole joke. That's what everyone finds funny with it, is that he's trying to defend his sister. And the mom is just like, nope, I'm calling the police. And he's like on the verge of crying. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with y'all? Like,
you know what though?
How do y'all even find this funny?
You know what? Then now that you say that, like, I feel like we're part of a generation of kids where our parents did that to us with no cameras.
Yeah, exactly.
So like,
right.
I definitely had at one point my mom would threaten to call the police on me just as a joke or some shit like that. And like scared the shit out of me.
Even take it like maybe more innocuous or like further back, like the whole tradition of smacking the kid's face into the birthday cake when he's like 2 or 3.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Like why?
For who? For
why?
Every adult in the room. Funniest thing in the world.
Literally just telling this kid, don't trust people.
Yeah, literally.
Trust no
your
one.
Safest, happiest moment. I can still get you. I can still ruin this whole shit, pack this shit whole.
Exactly. It's my money. It's my money. I don't give a fuck.
And like,
I buy the cake.
Contempt you have to have.
It's so funny that you're saying that when we were just talking about the state and the psychological warfare of the state. No, literally, like that's just like a microcosm of like this big brother shit of like keeping you on edge. It's like, yeah, of course I have a fucking anxiety disorder. I felt like I was going to get my ass whooped from having MTV on the TV for a split second. Yeah,
for
you know what I mean?
Like, I forget a dish in the sink. Like, I might get hit for that shit.
Right.
Right.
You used to like check the TV to see if it was still hot. You could touch it.
Just do a static sweep. Like,
yeah, right. Just do a little like.
Now it's like when Connor like, I can't remember what episode it was, but he was just like, yeah, it's like your parents are fucking cops. Like they're like the first fucking cops.
Yeah.
You know?
You remember he was saying something about the sound of like a old TV or something like that. And I'm thinking back on it and I was like, I got so like paranoid about like still if I hear a garage open, I like I think my mom is coming home and I got to turn everything off and I'm just like, and just like I hear the sound of like, you know, that subtle noise the TV makes when you turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
I still like hear that. You know what I'm saying? That's such a like, I don't know, man.
Yeah,
that sound
it's
is just
traumatic, dog. Like
the sound of the TV reverberates through my brain. Mama's gonna whoop my ass again.
No, she's gonna call my dad to whoop my ass.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Him getting home later than everybody.
Both my parents would spank me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they would both do it.
No, and I really believe, and it's not just black people, of course, but you know, it's really poor people in general. But there's such a backsliding happening where we want to defend the shitty ways we were born.
Right.
And then proliferate it.
Right. You see it on TikTok especially.
God,
like you see just thousands of adults essentially saying like it's always a child. Like there's no debate about the age. Nigga. Right. And tiny and it's this thing of just like, yeah, I don't care. I don't care what age they are. I'm beating that ass.
Right.
You know, like I'm whooping that ass. Mm-hmm. It's wild, and the darkest shit for me personally is like I used to have this very naive idea when I was, you know, like late teens, early 20s, that like we're in the age of information, so and it's only getting stronger, so there's no way. You said backslide. It's like, it's like, oh no, there's no way. No, we're just gonna learn and see how ridiculous it.
Keep going until
Right, we're gonna socially evolve. It's like you think because of the technology that equates to social evolution or something. I really used to I guess have hope for that.
Me too, man.
And the fact that you can go on an application like TikTok, which is supposed to be the most advanced, algorithmic phenomena of an app.
Nope.
And see just people in hordes with the most reactionary kind of positions on something as simple as like, it's a child. Their brain hasn't actually developed. You're an adult. You're supposed to nurture them and listen to them and talk to them and treat them like a human being from that age.
Even more sinister, they press record and edit the video with the assumption that we're gonna like this shit, that we're actually gonna fuck with the shit that you just post, like, oh, so sick, you just fucking spanked the kid, like,
and half the time they're right. Yeah, they're right.
They are,
because people buy into that shit.
So to the point, when we get to the point that we are like, whatever, wagging our finger at these people, the failure is 25 years old. The failure is 4 presidents old. Like.
Yeah, it's like I wish we could just get to a point where. The fact that something has happened isn't enough to justify it continuing to happen.
Oh my God.
You know what I'm saying? Like people act like, oh, I paid my student loans. I did fine. Why the fuck why can't you? I don't give a fuck about your loans.
Oh my God.
I'm not gonna say how much I owe because they'll come find me. But the amount that I owe is never getting paid. Mm-hmm. If my student
what's the connection with loans? I missed it.
Just in the sense that people like
the way shit. My suffering because I suffered.
Oh, right.
And so like,
and it's incredible. That's literally where the obsession with black parents and whipping comes from. Like the suffering that whoever was the last generation to be a slave and kept whipping their kids after that. That's the same justification.
Yeah.
My grandparents got whipped by massa and they whipped me. So I'm going to whip you. I don't care for free still.
Right.
Decade and generation after generation.
Yeah. It's like...
And we forget that went on for centuries.
And that's the only reason why we beat our kids the way we do.
Right.
It's because we are grown men. Our fathers were beat like that.
Yeah. Right. I do want to underscore this broader conversation around power and slavery as something broader than just chattel slavery, right? Like, I love like there were freedmen, who straight up said, oh yeah, I just went from chattel slavery to, I was born into chattel slavery, now we're going into wage slavery.
Right.
And like it does get into this broader thing around coercive power and authority, which has been around since damn near we've been around as a species.
Right.
And that's why I feel like, and then I also think, you can't talk about chattel slavery or wage slavery or domination or any of these things without talking about patriarchy also. Right. And how patriarchal societies that were also like gerontocracies, like a society ruled by the old, like the younger people ruled by the older people. And like, we talk about capital as power, but it's like there's also like going back thousands of years, like knowledge as power, but like not just in an uplifting way, but also but also just also you just came into this earth onto this planet and I know shit that you don't know. Right. I know tons of shit that you don't know and I'm gonna hold it over you.
And I can withhold that.
I can withhold information. I can keep secrets. I can
force a lot of information on you, whether you're ready for it or not. I could indoctrinate, whatever.
And I only like underscore that piece of it because to me that's what connects the conversation about chattel slavery and the experience of our ancestors to people all around the world, right. And enslaved peoples all around the world, all throughout history,
right.
Just the power thing.
Right. Right. And it's something that I almost said we can't escape, but like,
power,
it's not so easy. It's just like,
it's also power. you're right though. I mean, power in and of itself, authority in and of itself. Like, I don't think you can escape authority. There's always going to be some kind of authority, you know, whether it's formal or informal.
We're going to look for it too. You know?
Right. And for me, it's like, well, you know, like the person that has more authority within this group context, like, you know, are they in a position where they can be held accountable, where they are recallable?
Right.
You know, like, are there, you know, decision-making processes in place to where the person who has this authority and has this power can't just do whatever the fuck they want to do?
Right.
You know, and like leverage that power against people that they don't like or that they want to exploit, you know? But it's like, I do think that's true.
Power structures is the thing, because these things are fluid. So like, you know, those things are going to rise and fall just as, you know, as time goes on. It's just a matter of getting stuck in that shit, you know, in the way that people have had like seasonal changes in social structures. You know, somebody takes this authoritarian position in a certain season for a certain task, a particular task. And then the next year, somebody else takes the same position, and now you have to answer to that person. So you're always like checking yourself in the sense that, like, you know the position you're in is not permanent. Whereas now we're in a situation where, you know, voting doesn't really mean shit. You know, it's all bought and
all of
it's
it,
like
everything feels permanent. Everything feels like it can't be changed. Yeah, nothing can be changed.
It's like it couldn't have been anywhere maybe near like feudalism and being a serf, but it feels that locked in. Like there's nothing that can change.
You know what?
Dynamic.
It's like I don't want to say it super confidently because I don't have a source to point to, but it's like there's just been this narrative popping up recently that like serfs and like feudal I guess peasants worked way less than we did. Way less hours.
There is evidence for that.
I just don't have the source to pull up.
Yeah, no,
and
there's
we're
plenty of it.
Closer to the source of their power.
Yeah.
Than we are right now. Like, okay, I see my landlord. He's right there. I can like maybe, you know, kill him and get the whole farm.
Yeah, and there's
my landlord is fuck, who knows? I don't know.
Some office in Manhattan,
maybe in England. I don't know. I have no idea.
But the through line is we're talking about different forms of slavery. Yeah. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah,
you know, and power.
Yeah.
There's someone who has an abundance of material resources, a disproportionate amount that they're leveraging over a majority of people to get something out of them.
Yeah,
you know, and like that's the through line. That's why I think really what you were saying was right, just like at the base level of like you can't escape power, you can't escape authority. It's like it's a or even like hierarchy.
Yeah.
You can't. No. So it's a question of like, well, are we trying to be aware of it? Are we trying to you know, be mindful of it and deal with it? Are we trying to combat like something like hierarchy specifically?
Right.
Or are we just like
just resigned to it?
Right.
We're just gonna let it you know,
and
let it enact its will without any type of awareness on our part.
Right.
I think I know industrialization kind of sped up the average person's enslavement, you know? And I always wondered, will deindustrialization, whether through natural disaster or whatever, be forced on us in order for us to get out of this situation? Will we have to, not necessarily return the monkey, but, you know?
No, that's an important question to ask, you know? No, that's a deep thing though, because, you know, certain people I talk to in certain spaces, when they're talking about something like an economy where we're building economic institutions or social institutions, political institutions that are cooperative and that deal with labor and the land, I'm finding more and more people are using the term or the expression survival economy, you know, but there's a like we have to be like, I feel like we have to be specific, like when we're using terms like that, because it can create the illusion that in degrowth, in scaling down, which we need to do actually to live on this planet, but it can create the illusion that equates to like poverty and like starvation and all these different things, which is not true.
Hey,
right.
Can I tell you the root of that? I feel like we all know this a little bit, but white people and whiteness made and created in opposition to whatever they saw happening in Africa, whether that's how naked we were, how we lived off the land, whatever. That shit is uncivilized to them, and they built their likeness in this new world, especially in opposition to the way the natives here and the people of Africa lived. Now, these people had lived for hundreds and thousands of years. They survived 100,000 years. No bubonic plague ever, wiped them out until. So it's not a question of, does white society want to survive? It's, does white society want to be clean and civilized? Like, they'll kill themselves in order to just have some AC and some industrialization and some touchscreen. But the Khoisan in southwestern Africa have been alive for damn near 200,000 years. And after the global warming fucks off Europe and North America, the Khoisan will still be there. And that's because they have, in the smallest way, a survival economy. Like, they know how to live forever, and they can live off that forever. I
always like half as a joke, but partly just to like maybe like attempt to tap people into like social ecology if they don't know about it. But just I've been asking people like, do you think if there is a robot uprising, like if there's like a Terminator situation, do you really think they're gonna go after like indigenous people? You think they're gonna go after like Native Americans, Mayans, people in Papua New Guinea, like, you think they're really going to go after the people that have done nothing to, if they have access?
Don't even like show up on big, grids. Like,
right.
We're talking about electricity. We're talking about iron and steel and all these things.
Exactly. Like, and if they have access to all the information that humans have access to, they're going to know who did it. Yeah. They're going to know who, like,
they're going to know who they need to take over to continue doing it.
Yeah. Like, in iRobot, they were taking over the self-driving cars. They were not going into the forest.
No, they weren't.
They're not worried about that.
And it's I mean, I know I brought up Planet of the Apes, but it's something humanity has to reckon with. Some of humanity has already reckoned with it, and they just live the way they can and don't overextend themselves. But we are wrapped in a humanity that does overextend itself, and we'll see the error of our ways at some point. But yeah, survival.
Well, I have like so many different thoughts, like in response to what you were saying. One of them going back again to power, and I know I use this word power a lot, but like thinking about the United States of America as a settler colonial project, thinking about whiteness and race in and of itself. This is a distinct, specific concept that didn't really emerge until the 1600s, and
it predates industrialization.
Right. And thinking about that as a super majority, or rather a super nationality, not a super majority, a super nationality and social construct created for a wide range of people who just share somewhat similar physical features,
right,
to have some sort of rationale for exploiting another people en masse.
For moving to Boston from Dublin.
Right. Just for what? Manifest destiny. We have a new world over here. And, there are people who point I mean, even Tupac talked about, you know, his earlier interviews, like, or at least in one of them, you know, talking about the English, you know, granted the history is more complicated, but, you know, the English leaving what they thought was, you know, some kind of infringement on their liberty as human beings. Who's calling me? God damn.
Damn, nigga. Popular ass.
Wrong time.
Wow. The disrespect, man.
How, you know, it's like this whole project, it's like, what is this project really about? And, you know, since the creation of race and the development and calcification of capitalism and all of these complex systems, you know, it's like you're led to questions around like how whiteness fits in that, and like how whiteness fits into this broader global logic of domination and authoritarianism. And I mean, especially as like as a black person, you think about that, and there's like a lot of different ways you can kind of look at the situation that we're in. But I feel like from the standpoint of the United States, it's like clear at this point that like if white supremacy isn't broken in tandem with, you know, capitalism and other systems of domination, you know, this is understanding that white people control most of the state institutions, right, that the U.S. Through its military, through the private sector, along with China, are like the biggest emitters of CO2 on the planet.
Yeah,
right.
You know, and
China's a great example of
right. Well, look, and this is tied to
you could be anti-white supremacy and still ostensibly, you know.
Yes, and that's directly tied to the other thing that I wanted to point to. It's like, you know, quote unquote white people, Europeans, they studied statecraft from the Chinese dynasties. Right. You know, like that's why I always come back to this expression of like, yeah, no, white people, Europeans are just having their moment in the sun. Yeah.
Literally,
you know,
literally.
Because going back as far back as we can track and trace, you know, there are kingdoms all across the African continent. Right. You know, it's like
and not even that, like the bubonic plague and how Europe was kind of out of commission on the global scale lasted longer than both the colonization of the African continent and slavery in America. Like, everybody's been in the blender before. Like, Africans have been in the blender, Europeans have been in the blender. Right. African blenderism is more recent, but to act like,
well, it doesn't mean anything. It's because of that.
And the history before we were put in the blender doesn't mean anything, and we kind of allow ourselves to believe that too.
And our blenderhood is also institutionalized at this point. It's like,
well, no, that's what I was trying to say. Know, it's like it's like the framework of it's like the framework of organization. You know, it's like you said recently in Africa, and I'm assuming you're talking about like the nation state model. You were talking about colonial, colonial like structures of like government and
Songhai
governance.
Wait, was it Songhai? That's a 700-year-old kingdom. Like, longer than anything I can think about in this part of the world. But
right. So that's why it's like I always just end up coming back to this framing of social and economic systems of domination. You know, and also like intersectionality, which most people, it's been so. I mean, Amazon.com puts messaging on how they're intersectional on their fucking website at this point. So it's like, who even knows what that means? But just that understanding of like power, you know, that understanding of power of like, it's beyond, there's like, it's cuts across like race, gender, sex, class, and like all of us are all like dealing with it in different ways or navigating the world through these systems in different ways.
Right. I keep saying, if we go back to when Africans were kings, then we're just going to have a generation where white people are talking about how they used to be CEOs. That's what it's going to be.
Right. We were talking about this the other day.
We used to run Apple.
God damn it.
We were talking about this the other day. Like I was saying, like I fought for a certain amount of time, like after I became more developed in my perspective and philosophy on the world, I guess. There's a point in time where, you know, there were so many black men, you know, calling me king, and I would always just be like, I'm not trying to be a king, man. Yeah. I'm not trying to be a king. Like I'm with the peasantry over here. Like right. I'm not. That's not me at all.
This is the modern, you know, black. We was kings bullshit, but the Mansa Musa,
right,
he's richer than Jeff Bezos.
Right.
We were his mind fodder.
Right.
Us, like his kingdom sold us for golden slaves. Like, why are we capping dick riding this man?
Exactly.
Right.
As if he's alive right now and the black Elon Musk. Like, I don't understand.
Right.
And his trip to Hajj is what tipped off the Europeans about what was going on in his kingdom. Like, his trip and leaving his kingdom is directly related to the modern slave rush and the modern rush of Africa.
Oh, you mean when he went and fucked up the whole economy?
Yeah. And like flexed so hard that Europeans were like, let me go see what's
like, we
down
can't
there.
Have this.
Listen Timbuktu. Listen present day Mali in Senegal. Like,
right. We can't have this. We don't know what niggers are yet, but we got to stop them.
Right.
Or he had literally 80,000 slaves.
Yeah.
Right.
Grabbing his shit.
Dog, that's like
European kings must have thought, I want to be just like that.
That's what I'm saying again.
It's
right.
Like
they learn
about their
they learn. They
right.
synthesize around the craft of domination. Mm-hmm. You know,
right.
We have dominated before. We've dominated others and ourselves before.
Yes.
We
look at Liberia.
Right.
I mean, look at the African continent. Like the Bantu migration is not that far away in history, for one.
Look at our communities and workplaces and families.
Right.
You
don't even got to go outside the house.
Right. This hemisphere, right here.
Right. And I think the through line on all of this is colonization of the mind. You know, it's like that's really what's like underpinning that. Why someone
becomes colonization.
Right.
Everything we do.
Right. Yeah. Like pointing to the king. I'm saying like, and Mansa Musa or whatever. It's like you're trying to get respectability within the framework of domination, within the framework of a social logic that doesn't center our humanity as
peasants,
a people.
We were serfs too.
Right.
Right. Like, bro, we don't all need a business.
Right.
We don't all need a business.
We don't want a king. We don't. I
want to be free.
I want to be free. I wish they were free. I wish they had fucking unions in the gold mines in Timbuktu. They fucking didn't. You know, they were slaves.
Yeah.
If they didn't mine enough gold, you know, you cut their hands off, just like Leopold did.
Yeah.
500 years later.
The Belgians, right? Yeah.
Dog, one of the most satisfying things, I didn't think it was gonna go like this, but at that Philly show I was telling you about a few weeks ago, at one of the shows, I forgot some of my jokes and I just went on stage and I was like, hey, where are all my bosses at? It's like, where are my bosses at? And then like one lady cheered. And everybody booed her. It was hilarious. Hey. Everybody was like, "Hey, yo, fuck this!" Like,
but it's funny. You'll see a lot of those people though that see themselves as bosses are managers. They're like middle management or upper management. It's like you're not the shareholder. You're not the shareholder. You're not the owner of the firm. Like you're not.
Nobody gets fucking wet over the idea of being a boss more than that middle management person who's closer to us than anything.
Yeah, you're not at the top. You're not at the top of the hierarchy.
You're not even in the middle. Like,
that's the type of person that goes under the bridge and like pays a homeless dude to let him beat him up or something. That type of shit. Succession type shit. It's never the dude at the top.
And we're gonna the logical conclusion of this is wanting our own successions, wanting our own Murdoch families and our own Walton families, and our own Trumps. Like at what point does this become obvious? I mean, we could probably proliferate white supremacy without white people right now. Like if we.
Look at Brazil.
Look at Liberia.
I mean, there's white people in Brazil, but like, you know, people will point to Brazil, or they'll point to like, mixed race kids or whatever. It's like, oh, like let's all just mix and the world, it'll solve our problems. And it's like, no, look at Brazil. There's a fucking
crazy
colorism exists. You know, it's like, where are you on the spectrum?
Right.
In the new world, craziest thing, the more diverse you're, as a descendant of slaves, the wider the country you're in, the more violent the country you're in. Like America and Brazil, which like has the most like European and black mixedness, is way worse to be in than say Jamaica or the Dominican Republic or a lot of things. Like it's just something about the racial conflict itself breeds the violence. Like we want to point to white people are shooting up the schools and black people are shooting up the club or something, but clearly our origin of being around each other breeds violence.
Right. Because at its inception there was violence, and that's what it is. It's not the solely the fact of white people and black people existing together. I mean, actually, if you consider that race is an invention, then it is.
South Africa too.
But it's like,
like you live here and you're constantly reminded of how you got here, which is violence. A white dude in South Carolina looks around, bunch of black people. I'm white in South Carolina. I'm reminded of why we live together.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can deal with it and like try to, or most people don't. Most people just
it's really interesting. Down. It's really interesting, like having just on the contrast of that. It's like it might just be like the dominant culture and like maybe what the nation state's dominant culture was meant to be, because those are America's a state that was crafted as a white state. South Africa, at least in the government, is a minority run white state. Apartheid state.
Brazil Meanwhile, too is minority white, but it's the way people identify and all that.
Exactly. Meanwhile, it's like Nigeria. I have family over there, and they talk about like my uncle has a white neighbor, and like the few white people that pull up to Nigeria, they live like fucking kings. Ginger Baker is in Nigeria, I think, or was. I don't know if is he still alive?
I don't think he's still alive. I hope not.
Okay, but it's just like when they talk about it, it's like they talk about it like, and we were talking about this the other day, but they talk about it like, this dude just loves Nigerian culture. He just loves the women. He loves he loves the lifestyle. And in my mind, I just can't escape like, this dude just loves being around people that he gets to dominate without a second thought.
Yeah.
Like they don't put any thought into their relationship with him, because they're just so like, there's such a deep mental like
want to pleasing.
Yeah. I mean, even my cousin's daughter is half white, and just like the way they treat her is just so like, I've never met a more spoiled child in my life. And it's because she's light skinned in a dark skinned country. It's just so, and not to say that they should treat them worse, but like, dog, show that type of love for yourself. Like every time I talk to Nigerians about Nigerians, there's so much like disdain and like hate in it. It's just like,
I don't.
I feel like we talk about this every time we link up. Just like, again, with the colonization of the mind stuff. Like, I feel like that's like a running theme in our conversations.
I think it's a very English problem.
Yeah.
I will say that. I will say the fact that we're speaking English right now.
I mean,
is, and the fact that, there's a reason why as a Nigerian you come to America.
Yeah.
And not France.
Right.
I know a lot of Senegalese people who go to France.
Yeah.
But
right.
The way that English Anglo-Saxon oppression works is just, it really is a rotting of the mind.
It's pervasive, yeah.
And they want you to do the work for them.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like the French will like try to stick around to do the work, and I don't trust a black person to mentally enslave themselves.
Yeah. Gotta physically do it too.
Right.
The English really, and through the language, the English language kind of facilitates it at the same time.
And think about how, like, with the quote unquote diaspora wars, it's largely it's largely between Black American folks and like Windrush generation,
Yoruba
like
people
West Indian people in the UK.
Yeah.
You know, that's where at least what I see.
We're not even talking to Senegalese people in Africa or
right.
No, they're not involved.
No,
right.
Ethiopians,
Right.
we're not talking to you. Somalian, we're not talking to you, bro.
No.
Right.
This is a English black
Yeah.
African conversation.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
it's a self-hatred. It's a
Right.
we got to be the only ones in the room. First of all, if
Right.
there's another
It's oppression
nigga speaking
Olympics.
English
It's
in the room. I gotta get him out.
Right.
But it's a perverse and pervasive at the same time.
Yeah.
I also think about how specifically, at least from what I've seen through the quote unquote discourse, like there's this weird thing of like, it's like Black American folks not even really like, in my personal experience, and also like at the discourse level, like don't really care, like aren't really looking out.
No, Black Americans
to the rest
are
of
looking for another word to call ourselves except African. We are trying to make up new words, ADOS,
Right.
foundational Black Americans, just something that doesn't have African in the name.
Well, yes. So there's that part. There's like there's an anti-African thread, but then there's also just this thread of just like, it's like when Malcolm X said, like, yeah, they don't want you to look past Harlem, you know, because then you'll see like what they're doing over there. They're not using these systems to solve their problems. And but it's that thing of just, for lack of a better word, like an ethnocentric thing that is not exclusive to Black people here. It's Americans, people in this country in general tend to be ethnocentric. And then what I interpret as like, from outside the U.S. and from the UK in particular, like, because simultaneously our cultures, subcultures, you know, artistic contributions, they're global, like the impact is global and worldwide. There is this longing from other African people outside the U.S. to connect, to make that connection. And what I have felt is like over the course of, I don't know, I wasn't around decades ago, like in the 80s and the 70s and the 60s, so I don't have that personal perspective, but it seems like at least within the last few generations, there's almost this like resentment that has cultivated, you know, of like, you know, I've seen some of the nastiest shit, like the nastiest shit imaginable between African people, and I'm saying African, including us as Africans. You know, like
continental and in America.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, I've seen some of the nastiest projection, you know, like
repeating of white supremacist tropes just in between each other. Like,
right. And like you know, you see it from folks who come from, you know, maybe they're West African, but diaspora living in the UK, or they're Black, you know, British folks, or however they identify.
Caribbean, English
right. And there's this constant theme of like, you know, to Black folks, Black Americans, New Africans, African Americans, however you want to pinpoint that particular identity, there is this thing of just like, yeah, you don't have a culture. You don't have, you know, like we have our own name and our own colonial nation state. You know, like we have our own.
Oh my God!
You get what I'm saying? You don't even have that. You're
that shit is so. No,
because Black people would be like, y'all are poor, and then Africans would be like, y'all don't got shit, and then now we're both right. So what? So what now?
So what do we win? It's funny. I got in the longest argument with my mom.
Stressing.
I mean, it's real.
Embarrassing thing.
It is embarrassing.
You go.
I got two comments. So I got in an argument with my mom about that, and I had to explain to her that you're 3 years older than the state of Nigeria itself.
Right.
Like, what are you even talking about?
Right.
You know, and it's just like, it's so funny to me, like this whole diaspora war shit, and I've been trying to think about how to frame this like as a joke, or
it's so complicated though. Well, even just with the terms, that we're using.
But even just this simple idea that like that throughout, ever since race was invented, white people look for strategic ways to invent more white people, to like add more people to whiteness. And meanwhile,
even if they're not calling it white, even if they're not calling the structure white, the structure is assumed. The structure is implicit to how humans organize. Right. But it's a Eurocentric white colonial structure at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. Meanwhile, we're just so ready to like throw out whoever.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
And and even let white people decide who gets thrown out.
Oh yeah, who gets
you know?
Black or African.
I've been in so many spaces where white people think they get to like, they have any type of say in who's black and who's not.
Oh my God! Come on, man, that shit is so common. Yeah,
I'm like, what are you talking like?
Yo, like, what do
I'll kill you, like, motherfucker. What are you talking about? And
right.
I think about this all the time. Like, I have Asian friends, and I'm like, you would never look at an Asian person
and say you're not,
and say you're not Asian.
Right.
The only reason why you can physically look at me and see that I have African genetics.
Right.
Like, there's no in between that.
Right.
It doesn't matter how long my family has been in this country.
Exactly.
I'm still not a Native American. That's not where my genetics come from.
Right.
They don't come from Georgia.
Right.
Those people are dead or like, pushed off somewhere.
Yeah.
Right.
And the more that black people cope and call ourselves American, I'm a foundational black man. I'm ADOS.
Yeah. That shit is so like.
And while we're on this topic, I do want to speak to this thing from a place of empathy. As someone who, I never called myself a black nationalist like in the traditional sense, but I definitely, and I'm saying nationalist from the standpoint of like a nationhood. Yeah. But like I feel like there's people who are in the ADOS and whatever. It's a mixed bag. There's people who are coming into it from all different types of angles. Definitely. But I feel like at the core of it is people who share a lot of our same history and cultures, subcultures, and backgrounds, feeling like we don't have a name. We don't have. There is no distinct name for, where we come from, who we are, and that in using terms like black, which that's a racial term, but we still use it.
Applies to
right. But African people, billions.
Black doesn't describe anything in Nigeria.
Right.
Okay,
right.
What are you talking about?
Like,
right. We all under race. Everyone sitting at this table is black.
Yeah.
So it's like that doesn't really tell us about, and it's like ethnicity. Just like race is a social construct, but they're social constructs in different ways, And
social constructs are still real. They're not,
Right. It's like it just because it's a social construct doesn't mean people aren't living and dying
off of that shit.
Right, and exactly. So I mean, that whole conversation around identity is a whole conversation in and of itself. But the point that I'm trying to make is, I do feel like I feel where a lot of those folks are coming from, because you do see, and we've actually talked about this before, you do see people that don't come from our particular shared history or culture, but who look like us, take advantage of, the similarity in how we look. Right. And then they end up in places and institutions where they're speaking on behalf of this amorphous black people.
Right.
And then there's this constant feeling of like, you're erasing where I specifically come from. You're erasing specifically what we've contributed to this global landscape, whether it's art or culture or science or whatever it might be. It's like you're erasing. And like, I feel like that, on top of like even the understanding specifically within this country around things like music, like I always explain, like in Japan, and I've lived in Japan for some years in the past, they'll call hip hop, jazz, rock, they just call it black music. Mm-hmm. But growing up in this country, for you to say, but like this is black music, it's like a controversial, spicy thing to say
when
with
they
people
used
who
to
aren't.
call it race music.
Right.
I mean, like more or less they used to call it that.
Right. So again, to just get to the point, it's like, you have all this long and history, and then also to this day this erasure that's going on, and I feel like that is sort of the initial spark that gets people into something like ADOS. The problem is that spark turns into an attempt to assimilate it, an attempt to fold into the colonial project.
Right.
You know, it's like, and that is embarrassing. You're actually like, you're pleading to the institutions that enslaved our ancestors, you know, and saying, no, like, we deserve this, and you owe. It's just like, first of all, this project, these institutions aren't
in spite of you, not to ever include you. Like,
right, and it's also not going to give you shit. Also, you couldn't put a number. You couldn't put a number to what our ancestors went through and did to build this country.
Right.
There is no amount of money. There's no amount of money.
Right.
You know, and like, that's not to, you know, I'm specifically talking about the reparations conversation. It's like, if you understand how this nation state operates, and it's again, it's like we have to, I feel like we all have limited time, energy, resources, and it goes into a broader conversation around like struggle for change and systems change and choosing your battles wisely. Yeah. But it's like, for your entire political, cultural mission or whatever to revolve around America, accept us. Yeah. America, see us as human. It's like
it's one of your many immigrant groups. Like, it's
we
not.
We have to transcend. We have to transcend. We have to go back, before America.
Yeah.
We have to go back before nation states. We have to go back and look at that. You know, like, that's what we have to be doing. And I get passionate about this conversation because I just feel like a lot of people, black people who have gotten into that are just, they've been led astray. You know, they've been misled. And it's like a mixture of that very real and like pride. Genuine, that genuine feeling of, yes, we have been slighted. Yes, they do try to erase us. Yes, there are people who take advantage of the ambiguities around identity and to keep us out of opportunities. All that shit is real, but it's a mix of that genuine feeling, but then that, again, colonization of the mind. Right. You haven't actually unpacked what America is yet. You haven't actually unpacked what the nation state is. You haven't unpacked that history to where you can see it for the settler colonial horrific project that it is, and to reject it and to say, no, there is a way that our identity can be recognized, our history, our contributions can be recognized, and we can simultaneously connect to other African people around the world and connect. It's not this crabs in a bucket shit. It doesn't have to be that. You know, if you are open-minded enough to look beyond the nation state and the US of A, it doesn't have to be that. You say, nah, we can lean into each other and cooperate with each other and then figure out how to coexist with each other despite these structures. Because the structures don't give a fuck about us. Most ADOS people will say that, right? They'll say this doesn't care about us.
Right.
Dumb. They don't.
Right.
I mean, it's like that fucking Umar clip where he's talking about like, look at how the government has treated us for all these generations. Imagine if we got rid of the government. Then imagine what they would try to do to us.
He was arguing for government. It was a weird, bizarre, like backwards way of saying there has to be state order.
We need government to protect us from the government who is trying to keep us down since the inception of the government.
Yeah.
Right.
Just like
I'm thinking about the stars and bars with the black, you know, like the Juneteenth stars and bars flag.
Yeah.
My mind always comes to that. One, because it's such a goddamn ugly flag, and two, it's so commendable, and I get why we want just our little corner, our new Africa. You know, God bless Mutulu's heart, and our little African American flag, and however ham-fisted it is. It's a genuine emotion that descendants of slaves from the American South really feel.
Yeah.
But we kind of have to simultaneously see, one, for the Africans in the Western Hemisphere specifically, we have to see what makes us similar to Jamaicans and different, but still, like, Jamaicans are also American descendants of slaves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's maroon history that connects Black Americans to Jamaican people.
Even if there's no maroon history, there's literal, like, certain boats left.
Yeah, the same ships, right?
Towns and cities, and just one's going to North Carolina, one's going to Jamaica.
Right.
We will have our differences. They have patois and we have AAV or whatever. But
but even AAV, there's a million and one different accents in North America. Black accents.
Right.
We have to simultaneously accept these differences and these similarities.
Yeah.
In order to find our true New World identity as Africans, not in Africa, as Africans in America.
Right.
Right. And I also think it has to do with how we deal with white supremacy, like that's for me, the Pan-African insights are about utility, strategical utility, because, like, again, you just said it's like something like race or a social construct, it exists and it doesn't at the same time.
Right.
So it's like, we're still like being murdered and imprisoned and attacked disproportionately and being left out institutionally. And as these systems continue to corrode and collapse, it's only going to intensify and get worse. Mm-hmm. It's going to be Black and brown people that, poors, and being specific, poor and working class Black and brown people, that are going to get left behind. And it's like, the white supremacist nation state isn't gonna save us in those moments.
Right.
It's not gonna save us.
We be looking for us.
Right.
We're the first thing to be dropped off and let go.
Right. And it's gonna take transnational coalitions for us to power through whatever that is.
Yes.
Because it's gonna be the same thing in Europe for African people. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If anything, worse, because they have less representation. They're less represented over there.
Right. They don't have. It's incredible.
But then in Brazil, then in Latin America, it's the same. It's the same thing. Yes.
Yeah.
Because they don't have the, the institutional power that's grounded in, liberatory, politics, or however you want to frame it.
Right.
Something that's about all getting free.
Even in Africa, where there's still these hierarchies that are not based on color.
Right.
There's the same thing is going to happen.
The hierarchy is still based on the legacy of colonialism.
Exactly.
Right.
Nothing is untouched.
So it's proximity to whiteness, but it's not whiteness per se.
Oh yeah.
And people will find that line real quick when shit starts to break down.
School overseas, who's type beat.
Mine.
Platforms like YouTube, Patreon, Spotify, they're all ass. They don't respect your privacy, they're riddled with ads, and they're completely silent and unreachable when you need help. Have you ever talked to somebody at YouTube? Think about that. I sure haven't. To top it all off, we don't control them at all, despite being the reason they exist.
So that's why we're partnering with a design and development agency called Sanctuary Computer to build our own cooperative alternatives that bring the best features of all those platforms together and that we can control together too.
We seriously got to have an exodus to some sort of digital Zion that we built ourselves. Somewhere where all of us can actually have a say over the technology that we're using to communicate with each other. For more on how you can support us all in getting off these shitty platforms, visit opencollective.com/digital Zion and tap in.
Just because these dystopian systems are eating themselves alive
doesn't mean they gotta take us with them.
I am still thinking about Mutulu and New Africans in general and people who wanted a nation state inside America for Black people.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Jamaica is not, without its problems, but I'm doing the mental math, and and Jamaica is not Haiti. It didn't fight for its own freedom. Jamaica is a Black nation, and it's an African nation at the same time. Like I think every white people would even acknowledge Jamaican culture as African culture.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know where I'm
and it's
going.
being looted as we speak.
Jamaica is
ecological
like
ecological devastation on the island.
Sandals resorts and shit.
Yeah, bauxite mining.
Bauxite mining is really what I'm talking about in maroon communities. You know what I mean? And it's like, again, this is all just to this point about power. I'm just like, I know, because some people might hear me keep saying, oh, power, nation state, and it's like, no, like there's some real through lines here, because no matter your identity or whatever community you come from, if the social organization, if the social relations aren't, crafted towards, pushing against these types of top-down structures, you just end up reproducing the same systems, but maybe without white people even being there. Again, China, to your point about African, nation states, But yeah, China, point to any quote unquote racially homogenous place on the planet.
Right.
You're going to find exploited people.
Yeah.
You're going to find exploited people.
I mean, again, Liberia.
We can do bad all by ourselves. We know that. We can exploit black people without white people's help.
In the interest of protecting black people. I mean, I keep bringing up Liberia, but like they were literally very directly,
Liberia and the state of Israel are the two things I always, I point to.
And that's the fear. I want to know, what do we want here? Do we are we under the impression that we can find some kind of freedom in America? Because I'm not. I do kind of think sometimes, if we really want freedom, we got to get the fuck out of here. Yeah. Whether that's go back to Africa or go wherever. Yeah. It's on purpose. It's never going to happen here. And hoping for that is exercise in futility. But
and you're not saying that on some on the terms of some blood and soil shit. You're saying that purely on some
the blood and soil is ultimately where we're gonna lead ourselves. I'm trying to think of.
But I'm saying I feel like you're saying that from a place of, because we're here, we wouldn't even have the space or the whatever to do what we want to do to have autonomy or whatever it might be.
Yeah, autonomy is not in the cards for us here. Even if we vanquish white people, we're still on native land. We still have to do the process of land back and giving land back or we become colonizers ourselves. That's my mortal flaw with Mutulu's New Africa plan, because you're just going to take the Carolinas, which is not land. It's not African land to begin with. That's native land. So fighting white people here, yes, I'm sure it's valiant, but we're not going to make Harlem or Philly or these American cities ours, because they're not ours. We were not meant to be here.
Well, I want to push a little deeper into that conversation, because just as I'm talking about power and everyone, regardless of what they look like or where they come from, having the capacity to reproduce exploitative social relations and domination. A part of and I think we were actually talking about this the other night. I
think yesterday.
Yeah. A part of my issue with a lot of the discourse that I see around this type of thing is indigenous people are not a monolith, just like we aren't. I have indigenous friends from various tribes, and most of the conversations I've had with them in some of my acquaintances has been around them trying to overcome reactionary tendencies within their tribes. Because indigenous people got their own little ADOS tendencies too. Also, there's that.
Right.
And they're there is a whole separate sort of tribal system, depending on, what state or municipality or whatever you're in. They have their own arrangements, with the U.S. government. And so within those structures, again, it's not in amongst the tribes, it's not a monolith, So I always come back to this thing of really the question you asked of what are we trying to do? What do we want to do? And I think that's going to be true no matter where you are on the planet. So it's for us as African people, I feel who want to be free and want to have the space to live freely, it's about finding, making connections and bonds with indigenous folks who share our values and principles, and then making arrangements from there on those terms. Right. There's also racism in anti-black racism in indigenous communities.
The Seminoles who owned slaves up until look,
there's a thing called the 5 civilized tribes. So it's like that was a thing. So it's like, and I say the blood and soil thing also, like I use that phrasing not to allude to like fascism or whatever, but to pinpoint something more specific around like this idea of, because as humans in different places and different times, and different peoples have different connections to the land. That's like undeniable. Right. But humans have also been moving around the entire time. Right. That's why even, there's this phrase, imagine communities, like even pinpointing ethnic identity to these like rigid these partitions. That's a colonial structure, but it also doesn't even make sense. Like you can't, even from a genetic standpoint, you can't pinpoint where phenotypical mutations happened on a map and say, oh, well then in this neat little box, this is the land of these peoples. Like that's not how it goes. It's really like, it's like what Zapata said, it's like about you're working the land and you're living off of it, and you should control it. If you're there and you're working the land, you should control it. Right. Yeah. And it's obviously more complicated than that. But everything I'm saying right now, I don't really see in a lot of conversations. Like they're not really framing it in this way. And I feel like it has to do with the fact that a lot of people don't have this specific understanding of power and like organization. Right. Because if you could see the through line on that, you wouldn't get caught up in what I feel it's really like a spectrum of like liberal positions to outright fascist. You're just taking fascist ideas and like putting it through another lens,
Right. It's this, and it's not this like paternalistic like giving back of it, because it's not even ours to give back.
It's no one's to give anything.
Exactly.
We're humans, a part of a broader non-human nature.
Yeah. And I say that to say like
it's a funny thing that we would think that we are controlling the natural world. Right. Like the concept of
white people
owning
did kind of do that. So
they
taught us that that's what they did.
Right.
More or less.
Yeah.
Our dreams are built inside that box. Yeah. We have not found a way to envision a world outside of white manipulation and white,
and it's like
at least
different
not on the broad scale.
It's different dreams. The fucked up thing is it's different dreams inside that box too. So it's not even just one. It's like multiple fucked up dreams inside this fucked up box.
Right. But I say that to say just like it's not so much like this paternalistic version of that, but like creating the space to return, like we said, go back to this, like to have this space for like free association and organic development of these spaces that we live on, like to be able to go back to say like, people used to be able to just like freely move across, not borders, but like across continents and always find a space to live safely and under the same assumptions of the community that they came from, that people would provide space for you and people would make community for you and you would become, right. If it happens on a grand enough scale, you create a new ethnicity because it's not this thing that's defined by borders. It's like
there are whole ethnicity. I mean, just to do a plug. For my homie David Wengro's book and David Graeber's book, The Dawn of Everything. I mean, they talk about, like whole ass ethnic groups and identities being shaped out of struggle.
Right.
Right. I mean, that's what the Maroons are as an identity. Right.
Jews are. Like that's really what being Jewish is.
Right. I mean, when you brought up Seminoles, there's Black Seminoles as a Maroon community.
Bada bing.
The whole thing. I saw you looking.
Yeah, man, come on. And I don't want us to make an Israel. I don't think a black Israel is gonna bring freedom to us or anybody else.
Right.
No, it's only gonna put us in the position of oppressor, and that doesn't sound fun.
No.
Right. Again, pointing to Liberia. You know,
Yeah. I'm not trying to oppress nobody.
I'm
You know.
not.
I'm not trying to oppress nobody. I just,
I'm not really following the nation state model like that.
I'm not even
You
like.
wanna talk about your sweater? You wanna get into it now?
Oh yeah. I don't know if it's visible.
It's I can't tell if his eyes are open or closed. So
They're open. It's
Oh,
a
they
distance
are?
thing. It's a distance thing. Like you need some room.
because the picture I think it's referencing. I feel like his eyes are closed, but I really don't know.
No, they're
It's really
open.
good picture. Though. I mean, it's a really good sweater.
Thank you. Yeah, Pac.
All right.
I don't even know where to start. I don't even know where to start with that. I mean, I say this is like my new thing, I guess, but it's also like it's not just like a funny saying. It's also like to me objectively true. Like I wouldn't even be sitting in here talking to y'all right now without Pac, and like the reason for that being that, you know, I always have to explain to people like I didn't grow up with radical parents. I didn't grow up in a revolutionary family, or I didn't grow up with a thorough education of the black radical tradition, or I didn't have any of that. My introduction to all of it was Tupac Shakur. And like the first time I heard Tupac, I was watching I was talking about how my parents, I grew up in a religious household, so I couldn't listen to worldly music or secular music like that unless it was like Disney or whatever. But I would have these moments where I could sneak away and watch MTV or VH1 or whatever it was. And I remember VH1 used to have this show Zach and I talk about all the time called I Love the 90s.
Oh yeah.
I love
You remember that?
Yeah.
I loved watching
I love the 90s.
and the 80s and the 70s ones.
Yeah.
Crack.
And in the 2000s.
Yeah.
I think they did
it,
2010s too.
No.
it may have
I
not
think they brought it
been.
back.
It may have not been I Love the 90s, but I think it was. I don't think it was just like some countdown type deal. I think they were like comedians giving commentary and whatnot. And God, this must have been like sometime between 2003 and 2005 or something. It's like in that window.
Yeah.
And I heard Keep Your Head Up. They had it in the countdown. So mind you, I'm not even hearing the full song. I'm just hearing
Like
comedians,
clips.
moments,
Right.
and
While they make jokes
While
and,
they
like,
exactly,
observations about it. I love that.
exactly. But I was like,
Christian Finnegan talking about.
right?
Michael Ian Black is up there.
Yes,
Giving his
yes,
2 cents
Ant-
about Pac.
and Godfrey also.
Godfrey,
yeah.
that black dude.
That man is
Yeah.
so old, like surprisingly old.
Gilbert Godfrey?
No.
He just died.
No,
Yeah,
not Gilbert
yeah.
Godfrey. He's like
Oh,
he's
black
Nigerian.
guy.
He's
Yeah.
Nigerian, right?
He is Nigerian, and
Yeah.
you know what's funny is somebody told me that he like has this attitude about like I'm the only Nigerian comic out there, and like
See, he would point out that you're half Nigerian.
I
Yedoye.
mean, well,
He'd be like, you're not pure Nigerian.
well,
Yedoye.
look, I had that conversation. I had that conversation with somebody, and then I swear to God, like it was what's his name? Why can I not remember his name? He's a comic, doesn't matter. But we had this conversation, and I was open for this dude in Atlanta, and I swear to God, I came back to New York like the next a couple days later. I was in Columbus Circle for an audition or something like that, and I swear to God, Godfrey walks out of the subway station, and I look across Columbus Circle, and he makes eye contact with me, and just like death stare.
Nigerian awareness.
Yeah, I don't know how he did it.
How he knew.
He was just like, this motherfucker loves the 90s.
You know my work, motherfuckers.
But anyways, I heard that glimpse of the song that I got through that. It's literally, I make music. I've came up in a musical family. My dad's a musician. I've listened to a lot of music in my life, and there's no other like musical moment that I can think of that hit me like that to hear something and it just like it gets you like right there, like off rip, to the point where you're like, who is this person? Yeah. And from that point on until this day, it became like an obsession, you know, just trying to understand who he was and like what he was trying to do. And so going back to what I was saying originally, as you do that, as you go through that process, like I was just explaining this to someone the other night that as an artist, you know, Tupac informed my ideas about, you know, what I'm supposed to do through art and with other artists to serve Black people and people in general. And I remember having I guess I was listening to I don't think it was an interview he did with Chuck Phillips, but it was some other person, and he was talking about, oh, maybe it was Monster Cody.
Interview with Monster Cody?
A phone call, something like that. And but he put out this nugget of like, yeah, we're gonna get all the rappers together, and we're gonna do these, you know, we're gonna have a softball, like baseball league, like these sports leagues, and we're gonna create like a national network of community youth centers. Right. And it put this nugget in my head. Tupac was the one who put the nugget in my head of like institutions, exactly. You know, not just like quote unquote charity, not just
individualism,
right. Just whatever reactive stuff. And I knew, he didn't have it all figured out, but it was like an instinct. It was a gesture towards something broader. And later on in life, you know, in my 20s, starting to study Black revolutionary history, you know, learning about Afeni, you know, learning about where it all really came from, and just going even, you know, deeper on that. That's what put me in the mind frame of like, I just gotta go further than he did, you know. And like the expression I always use with people is like Tupac 2.0. Like I gotta be Tupac 2.0. Right. You know. And it wasn't like this thing of like, you know, hip hop, like I gotta be the number one or whatever. It was this thing of like, no, he fucked up. You know what I mean? He tried. Right. Yeah. But he fucked up. Yeah. And how? Why? You know, what really was it? And like exploring that. And it was like, it was wild. It was really wild, I guess, later on in these last 6-7 years or whatever, to learn more about, you know, going from the Panther 21 to studying the dynamics of the Black Panther Party, and then discovering that there was a Black revolutionary tradition that went all the way it could be tied to the 1800s. Right. You know, I mean, you could say beyond that, but specifically like you know, in a leftist sense, you know, right. An anti-capitalist sense, and also like going deep, even just on Tupac's music. Like there's one song of his that I've heard where he has a bar. The bar was something to the effect of like, he says the phrasing was like capitalistic drug dealing, but he was referring to America. Right. Like he was talking about the way America operates, you know. And it was one of the records he recorded. It was one of these records that he recorded in the last months of his life, you know, and like anyone who's done a deep dive on Tupac's life and history and has heard all his interviews, like knows that approaching the you know, in the months and weeks leading up to his death, you know, he was being more vocal about engaging in political struggle more directly.
Yeah.
Granted, it was like electoral, you know, like a political party and, you know, running for mayor and things like that. Right. But also reading more radical literature and then like it makes you wonder, like, damn, like what was Mace Windu gonna be like a black militant revolutionary? Like,
He should have been.
Right. And for those who don't know, again, with the stars, keeping on theme with Star Wars, Tupac was gonna be auditioning for the role of Mace Windu.
Yeah, I thought it wasn't gonna be relevant that I started reading the Phantom Menace manga the other day.
It's incredible.
Oh, it's super relevant.
Yeah, I thought it wasn't gonna come up.
That trilogy is so fucking black pill George Lucas. Like he's like fucking Cheney, fucking Bush. You sons of bitches. Pop, get in here, Pop.
Federation betrayed the Senate.
This is how democracy does. No, but hey, you don't want to be Tupac 2.0. Nobody does.
Right, right.
You and me and Pac were all failed into believing that.
Yeah.
Wait, you gonna elaborate on like where you come from with that perspective? Like what in particular you mean?
Oh,
you know
that no one should want to be a Pac 2.0.
In the sense of
have y'all heard the brother's voice? Y'all have heard him speak.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How old do you think he sounds?
Right. How old he sounds?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
He sounds like he's in his 40s.
and I know it's funny, but
right.
He knew exactly what his predicament was. Is that he was the only one,
right,
with the knowledge and with the ability,
right,
and that reality weighed so much on him. I really believe it killed him. But he was failed by, you know, Huey and Eldridge and
didn't have even the infrastructure. There was no
nothing.
Right.
No, and they knew he existed. They knew who he was. They knew Afeni's son.
Well, he like talked to Huey directly pretty frequently, right? Or is that
sure? But Huey, just like Mutulu, and just like none of those men were there to guide him.
Right.
And Mutulu did, you know, what he could from behind bars.
Wait, who are you saying spoke to Huey? Pac. Did he?
As a child, dude.
Yeah, I don't think like it. I thought you meant like a
not
fleshed out.
I don't think it during his career, unless
not during his career. I mean,
because Huey died in the 80s.
In like 80
through Fanny. Yeah, when he was living, I think in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
You know, just in passing things. But again, that's how uninvolved that generation of heroes
was. Right.
Of strong singular men.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, by the time Pac is 13, none of those men are there to speak of to help him and guide him.
Right.
So it's worth fuck all. And he knew that. He did what he could. Pac wasn't gonna let Fanny down, and his mother raised him, and you know he's his mother's son. But to the extent that one young millionaire is fully expected to, and everyone is excited to believe in him as a singular fix-all for our problems.
Right. Like a messiah.
It's and my God, the way he is messiahed in iconography and in merch. We knew what we did to him. They knew what they did to him. Right. They knew that he would never ever, even if he lived long enough, what he wanted to do and what was expected of him was never going to happen. Malcolm Martin, Huey, Eldridge, whoever the fuck, they all did it. They all tried to posture the same way,
Right.
failed and didn't even work together, like actually to make it happen. So
Right.
I feel bad for him. I really do. I feel terrible for that guy because he it reminds me of like Amy Winehouse. Like that's, I know he's a powerful man, but that's how at the mercy of not only his audience but his detractors and his
you're thinking about you're really pointing to like the cult of personality.
Yes. The cult of personality is why it's doomed to fail. Why his efforts were doomed to fail. If this was a group of us and I was just a soldier in the group, we could really implement these ideas.
It made him an easy target.
Of course.
Right.
And y'all like to see him, talk and get all emotional in interviews, and we love it and it's inspiring, but that's one man. Screaming to the rest of the world. And knowing that y'all aren't going to do shit. Y'all are not, like, it was never going to happen. And when he gets shot and his life is put in danger and he kind of puts a lot of the political stuff down, the vitriol at him was even more. Oh, I thought you were revolutionary. Now you're talking about gangster shit. Like, now that he's dead, people say, oh, he was never a gangster. Like, oh, he did ballet in high school. Like, what do you want from him? What did y'all want from him? Did you want a killer? Did you want
what do you want to do?
Malcolm? Like, what
actually? And he
25. I'm older than he ever would have been, or And I don't know shit. Like, I'm a kid. I'm a kid right now. I can only imagine like how the doom. I mean, we hear it in his writing, but hopeless. Like, is a sad place to be in.
Right.
And I don't wish that on you.
I really don't. And you know we're on the same page about cult of personality and like having, anything being centered on individuals, and but and on that point, I do think about how he was simultaneously aware that he wasn't being given any. I mean, he spoke at that Malcolm X grassroots movement conference where he said this explicitly. He's like, I'm still supposed to be fucking getting the knowledge. I'm supposed to be behind him
at Morehouse. At 20 years old, he should have been at Morehouse looking at y'all for why the fuck is he speaking? And it's we're still in that position. We are still in that position. Like, there is nothing for us
still
as
learning to be
men
done.
His age, around the age he was. Like, we don't have nothing from that generation to help us. We would all be, with his money, like, we'd all be little hymns running around trying to do 60 years of work in 5 years. Sounding 40 years old.
And it speaks to like the time limit that is on you when you start coming forward with shit like that, and like being surveilled from the time you're like a child. You gotta be wrestling with that the whole time, to be like, to hear cops outside your house calling your mom a black bitch and all this stuff, and then you like, why would you have an expectation that you're gonna get anything done?
Or that,
really? But he also said that he might not be the one to get anything done. He might be the one to spark the next man.
He certainly was not. Might not.
I say that just to reinforce.
No, and that's his words. Like, his words were, I might not do the thing, but I will inspire. He's even being optimistic there. You know you're not going to do it. That word one
might.
man can't do it anyway. Even the mind you spark is not one man. It's the millions of minds you spark. And hopefully that those millions glue together, and we are no longer in a wanting for a new Pac or a new Malcolm.
We can transcend that entirely.
Transcend that.
And I think of,
really put his soul to rest,
I think of Subcomandante Marcos and Abdullah Öcalan on those points, and for those that don't know, if I can try and be as succinct as possible, for Subcomandante Marcos, he was mestizo, quote unquote mestizo, Mexican man that went into and was a professor, as far as we know, who got together with other militants, went into the jungles of southern Mexico and linked up with indigenous Mayas people, and with indigenous people sort of organically forged, a militant revolutionary methodology, that they call zapatismo. But the point I'm trying to get to is we might not even be talking about this struggle or even know about it if he didn't go into the press with a mask over his face and become a heartthrob through the 90s and be associated with Rage Against the Machine. And he made a conscious decision as an individual to put himself out there in order to, in a way, play off of the contradictions, to get all eyes on him, to point to a struggle that was collective and bottom up in nature.
Right.
And I bring up Abdullah Öcalan because, this is a Kurdish revolutionary who was involved with this organization, the PKK, in Turkey. Actually, lots of parallels to me with the Black Liberation Army, in terms of trying to wage a militant, statist, and frankly authoritarian struggle from within a nation state as an oppressed people. He ended up getting captured, and by the time he had been captured, and actually still to this day, huge personality cult around him.
Flags with his face on it.
Right, like this, he's almost a mystical god prophet figure. But after being imprisoned, he started to read and write more than he ever had, and ended up taking again this pushing out from that figurehead position or cult of personality, pushing this bottom up, radically democratic, program and strategy, for Kurdish liberation and liberation of all peoples around the world. And in both cases, you have this you have a contradiction of sorts, because you have people that are pushing something that is anti-cult of personality, anti-focus on the
cult of personality to push it.
Right, exactly. And in another way, I think about how that contradiction is almost inherent anytime we see a notable thinker or artist or revolutionary theorist, whatever it might be, who is able to put some type of ideas out into the world that resonate with millions of people.
I think it's I think that's certainly true.
Right.
But it happens earlier, and it's more sinister than even that. Take it out of the political. Kurt Cobain, one of the most interviewed people of the 90s. And
I was going to bring up Kurt Cobain, but I didn't want to be the one.
No, thank you for letting me do it.
Yeah.
Because him and Pac are so similar.
Yeah, they are.
It's incredibly heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And it's a thing that makes it different from Marcos to
Öcalan. Yeah.
To Öcalan, because we're in America.
Yeah.
Right.
So in America, you can look into the camera and say,
right.
My town was depleted of industry and jobs. Right. My mother was an addict. I was an addict through the public school system since I was 13. School teachers molested me. Now I'm depressed. That's what the whole scene in my city is about. And people would just nod. Okay, but why do you do this? Why do you whatever? And then when you kill yourself, and that suicide has ripple effects throughout your whole generation, people are just kind of what's going on with these young men? Kurt Cobain, Kurt and Pac told you exactly what was going on with them.
Yeah.
And with the men their age.
Right.
And when they eventually die, we kind of just eat their dead bodies, more or less.
Yeah, there's a whole cottage industry built on just documenting how Pac and Biggie were killed
with no instinct of trying to alleviate the things that brought.
There's no connection.
Nothing.
There's no connection to anything broader. No collective struggle for a better world or anything.
Right.
Which, to be
just
clear,
appealing to the East versus West thing, and no.
But for both Pac and Kurt Cobain, for both of them, they were both anti-capitalist, even though there's contradictions with both of them, but through their journals and through their interviews, they express this in different ways.
Was a card-carrying communist, like he really had the card.
Right. But when I'm speaking to the contradictions, I'm saying, people will point to the music and be like, oh, well, he's talking about getting money and getting rich. And then with Kurt Cobain, he was, in his journals, he was talking about entryism. For those who don't know, the concept of entryism is like, you infiltrate a hegemonic system and you destroy it from the inside. He thought he could, like with Lord of the Rings, he thought he could put the ring on his finger and then take it off. And in hell, there's some people who say he was getting ready to do that, or
his suicide note says he couldn't do it. Like that's really why he wrote.
Right.
But he became a part of it.
But yeah, in both of those cases, it's like they did a lot of the dread that they felt and a lot of the depression that they felt and angst that they felt was connected to these systems, capitalism specifically, but with Kurt Cobain, he's also talking about patriarchy. He's talking about intersectionality in his journals, and he's
pharmaceutical industries,
therapy
industries, like
and funnily enough, there's overlap. There's a page in Kurt Cobain's journal that reads like an Abdullah Öcalan entry. You know what I'm talking about? Where he's basically saying it started with men dominating. He's like all the other isms are tied, to this one. It's like, and if people who are familiar with Öcalan's work, that's like genealogy and all of that is, it's basically this thing around trying to go back and explore the history of like how these extremely authoritarian structures form. And it's like you see these common overlapping threads with patriarchy and gerontocracy, society ruled by old motherfuckers and men, know?
Oh, yeah. And Kurt and Pac definitely. Like those two things, like always looking at the older men above them with so much embarrassment and scorn.
Right.
Where were you? Like, where were you for us? Like, for my generation.
Right.
Yeah.
And to be clear, from my standpoint, my kind of subtle joke about how like I didn't want to be the one to bring up Kurt Cobain. Like, that was really coming from a place of like, because of the cult of personality around both of them and the conspiracy, quote unquote conspiracy theory, I'm putting quotes around that because there are conspiracies, I think, in both of their cases, but because of those things, for generations there's been this like, or for decades there's been this sort of like eye roll if you're bringing their names up, because most people don't actually have a comprehensive understanding of who they were as people and what they believed and what they were trying to do and what they wanted in the world. They're basically just these caricatures.
It's the Marleyification. And when they did it to Bob Marley, we should have known they can do it to anybody. Like, I really grew up thinking Bob was just vibes. Like, and then I put on a song called fucking Natural Mystic, like the first song on Exodus. And I'm like, what the fuck he's talking about?
I mean, Exodus itself, the title, movement of the people. Like,
if they can neuter him, they've neutered Pac already. Like,
multiple times.
They've neutered Kurt, and every time Kurt's popularity will come up again, they'll neuter him and neuter what he talked about again.
I mean, that's what literally shot through Pac's testicles. So like,
but that's literally what the individualism is. It's like,
I was just gonna say, it was nauseating to see like this new Batman film pick my favorite. It was like, the least commercial song. Like, that was like, that was like our private little like deep cut in the context of the world of Nirvana, and they went and they just put
Nevermind. Like,
right, and just like blew it the fuck up.
And that becomes Kurt's
his legacy.
His touch on fucking being mopey.
Yeah.
Like,
mopey cop.
Batman being mopey. Like,
Yeah.
We got a mopey Batman.
Yeah.
Put some Kurt on.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
We got a mopey Batman starring a dude who owns a gold mine.
Yeah.
And
Jim Gordon.
We got a vice president who smoked weed and listened to Pac. Allegedly.
And put people in jail for smoking weed and listening to Pac.
Right. So it's like, so the cult of personality perpetuates all these different things that ultimately hide and obfuscate, for lack of a better word, like the revolutionary seeds of these people. Fuck even saying revolutionary, because I I'm not saying.
This is what made them important. What made them important to us.
Well, human, like, but I'm saying also, like, I'm not trying to use revolutionary on some like, ooh, like hardcore shit. Like, I'm saying, like, they fundamentally understood that this world and these systems that we're living in are, dog. Pac had a song called "This Ain't Living." Like, he's like, he's saying, like, this isn't. This isn't how we're supposed to be living. Like, this isn't life.
Right. And he took that line out of Inner City Blues, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that line is such the fucking hauntingness of the, like, when you see I live in East Harlem. When you live in a neighborhood, just around, when you live around poor people, like, poor people know, oppressed people know, I'm not living. Like,
to that point, I was going to use the same word, obfuscation, because like my earliest memories of Pac are like,
that word just felt too fancy to me. But the word felt too fancy to me. So I was like, for lack of a better word,
I had it on my tongue from the start of it, because I'm thinking about like my kind of introduction to Pac is like, I don't even remember like a specific time that it happened. I just remember I was at my dad's house in Stone Mountain. And I remember it like,
y'all got an ATL connection too. Georgia.
Where? Off Ray's Road in Memorial.
Oh shit! I grew up between Stone Mountain and Lithonia, so I was like,
oh, you deeper in there? Okay. Yeah, I'm between Stone Mountain and like Decatur, Scottsdale. Like.
Okay,
I am not from Atlanta.
No,
I mean, according to most people, neither are.
Yeah, no, we're not either.
Oh right,
East side, baby.
Let's go. But so I was like in Stone Mountain, and I remember like my earliest memories of hearing Pac is like I feel like what most like casual listeners associate with Pac sound, which is like the later like Death Row stuff, where he's like the "come with me" like that sound.
That's his most famous.
Yeah, that's like the most
iconic.
Yeah,
people don't know about Tupacalypse now.
Yeah, Tupac. Exactly. Which is like when he's
my niggas even like
which is when he's talking about when he's like spitting the most radical.
And that was my introduction. Keep your head up is from Strictly for My Niggas.
Yeah, and meanwhile I'm like hearing the like Illuminati shit and like
and he was angry.
Yeah, you know, like you hear the anger. The anger comes through, but it's also the like the sort of just kind of bare negativity that was like, you know, some people say is like just Suge's influence and potential fed shit.
The word that's coming to my mind is interpersonal. He was getting very the earlier stuff is thinking more collectively, and then he gets more and he was saying that he was gonna swing back. That's what he was saying before he was killed, was that I'm gonna swing back, but right now I just gotta get this shit off of my chest. This is what he said himself.
It's incredible because that interpersonal era had two sides to it. It had the anger of a lot of Illuminati and All Eyes on Me.
Right.
But All Eyes on Me also, I mean, Me Against the World is where...
That's the in-between,
That's the in-between.
Yeah. That's my favorite Tupac album.
It's his best album ever.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
And he predicts a lot of stylistic changes. Like, he goes about it, about lyrics the way like Drake and Kanye currently go about lyrics, like interpersonal, talking about my controversies, talking about what's going on in the big crib that I just got, but also why I'm not who I used to be, getting into that. And you look at hip hop before that, and that didn't exist at all, like really at all,
like self-reflection and like
at all. Like
it was like you had just kind of like tales and
I woke up early on my born day. I'm 20. It's a blessing. I'm going outside and mom dapping up niggas.
I played basketball today.
It was a good day. I had a great day today, but it wasn't like too many tears. You know, so many tears.
So many tears. It wasn't like you could chart a whole arc of a person. And like that was my biggest issue with Pac coming into it. Like my early introduction to him was like when you get the like his death and Biggie's death, the whole thing just gets messy, and it becomes like you can't even, when you're just getting all of that information at the same time, it's like you can't even make a whole timeline of it. And also I didn't have like consistent access to a computer, so I couldn't just Google shit. But like, you just hear like, oh, they had beef and they hated each other, but then you kind of lose out on the whole years when they were friends and they were like,
right,
you know, you just kind of miss out on everything if you're just watching the documentaries and you're just
the media storm. Yeah,
exactly. And it was like,
I want to ask you something.
Yeah.
You know what thug life means?
Yeah. As in his like, his
the
plan
hate
with
you give little infants fucks everybody, fucks everyone. That's what thug life stands for.
Oh, the acronym. No, I did not know.
Yeah.
No one knows that.
Yeah, no one knows
Absolutely
that.
And thug life has no other purpose. Like,
but the meme, it's like a meme to people.
It's and
the
that's
tattoo on the belly.
Yeah.
And that's how deep it will get.
Yeah.
When it comes to the Marleyification, if we want to call it that.
Right.
But you can literally write a code.
Right.
On how to conduct yourself, and it will be whittled down into T-shirts and memes.
Yeah.
20 years later.
And I was going to talk about that earlier. You know, like how that played a part in even shaping and forming my own personal philosophy. You know, in my early 20s. You know, thinking about death. Well, I was born and raised in a Southern Baptist, you know, fundamentalist Christian household. I know I sound like a broken record. It's like I just keep saying that over and over again. But it was a big deal for me, you know, and like 17, 18, you know, I had to make a long story short, I had a breaking up with organized religion as a whole. And I'm like, I'm wrestling with these deeper existential questions. And the one thing I kept circling back to was just like life and death and what happens, you know, like what happens and coming to that base thought of like, well, you know, if we had a society and a world where our basic essential needs could be guaranteed, where we could have the opportunity to explore all of our potentialities, where we were born into a community, you know, it was beyond the nuclear, quote unquote, nuclear family. You know, we had love and intimacy with everyone that was, you know, around us. You know, it's like Tupac, my only fear of death is reincarnation. You know, that's what he's talking about. You know, and like that was like the huge driver for me of like, so, you know, systems change, social change, institutions, like how we relate. You get what I'm saying? Like that.
It's incredible how thug life can simultaneously mean everything that you're saying right now,
and then just be a meme for a white girl to be like thug, right.
How hopeless could he feel? You know how exhausted and used and defiled could he have felt towards the end of his life?
Right.
What do I do? Like what?
Right. It's like thank
what
God Mark Fisher wasn't around to, you know.
I mean, and I get why it seems pointless for young men now. Because if Pac did all that and y'all still don't give a fuck, why?
Yeah.
Like, would you want me to throw myself into the fire too? Like, I don't want to do that shit.
Right.
I wouldn't want to do that shit at all. Y'all don't give a fuck. Y'all don't care.
Right.
And some y'all do, of course. But there's a lot of people who don't. Like, and there's a lot of people that paid money to see Pac, will pay money to buy his music, will slush out money to see his hologram, I'm sure. But will never, ever
give a fuck.
Or even Google what thug life means or what they think thug life means, you know?
Right. But that does remind me of what you were saying, though, coming back to the point about you specifically talking about where Tupac's head may have been at, you know, in those times and like the hopelessness of it. And then simultaneously people looking at what he went through and what he tried and seeing the results and being like, fuck that. Like it's not worth it or whatever. It circles right on back to this point about, you know, individual versus collective, you know, struggle. It circles right on back to that, you know, because if you do have the understanding of, oh, well, no, you don't have to, and you shouldn't be. You're not supposed to be the quote unquote Messiah.
Or the one.
Right.
And I know that's how you when you heard me say Tupac 2.0, you're just like, oh, well, you're just saying another Messiah, and it's
we're
like
just gonna lose you again,
right,
And like,
right,
we'll be left like we were left without Pac,
right,
aimless,
right,
you know?
Right.
But it's like when we tap into what Ella Baker was talking about, you know, of like thinking about spaces and thinking about, you know, and thinking about how we relate to one another and like what we can do together, you know, from the bottom up.
It's not like Pac talked about himself as if he was a messiah. He was just like, I'm just the only one talking like this. The world he expected, like the world he envisioned. If you listen to like, I wonder if heaven got a ghetto.
Right.
He's not thinking about a heaven for him sitting down as a like he's trying to be back at the PJs at the projects. Like, I wish we were all together. Actually, like I wish
community.
Like, for the first time, everybody let go and like. What he says in for once I was down with the niggas, felt good in the hood being around the niggas, and I feel like I understand that all the fucking time. Like, they like hood niggas will ostracize a nigga who seems like an individual, and that individual will go deeper into his individualism. When what we need is each other. And what Pac needed was other people. Other people. He did not need any more pushing into an individualism. He didn't need any more messiahs. He was so alone. I really meant it.
Man. On that, like, I want to talk about Kendrick, man.
Boy.
No, and I want to use. I really want to use this.
What
that
happened
point,
to my boy?
Look what they massacred my boy.
Well, this point of the conversation, like that. Because we have mutuals with Kendrick, you know, and like...
That's all Kendrick wants to do, is be Pac 2.0.
Yeah.
And he's really doing what he thinks is right, and it's gonna... I hope he frees himself from this.
Yeah. And look, I think there's so many layers to the conversation that I don't even... You know, if we really tried to unpack all the layers, we'd be here for 8 hours or whatever.
Right.
But I will say that there is something about hip hop and rap, whatever you want to call it, whatever distinctions you want to make, you know, that centers the ego and centers this sort of narcissism and bravado, rags to riches. I mean, there's 1,000,001 different elements of it. And the problem is that most people who are looking at Pac and who want to be the quote unquote greatest MC, but also like help black people, whatever that means to them, they don't see Tupac was Tupac because Afeni was it was Afeni. Yeah. Like he was born into a revolutionary family is the point that I'm making. Mutulu was Mutulu, exactly. Geronimo Pratt. Right.
That put the love into him and put that.
Right. And he felt that was, I'm just saying, there was that revolutionary context. It was not just rhetoric. It was not, it was his life. And it was from the time he was born until the time that he died. And I'm not saying that to say like, oh, you know, you could never help people liberate themselves or something because you weren't born into a revolution. Obviously, I'm not saying that, but I am saying that if your entry point to hip hop into rap is centered on the ego and being number one, like it's a basketball game, like it's some sports shit. Because look, Tupac had that MC competitive part to him, sure. Right. But baseline before that, hip hop was a means to a revolutionary end.
Right. Let's black people feeding themselves is revolutionary. And it's absolutely fucking worth it to just do hip hop to feed your family.
Right. I
hope people don't think, and Pac was a great writer. He was a great rhetoric man. But I really hope that people don't think that if Pac had the opportunity to get his ideas across, whether through writing or through rhetoric, in another way,
or film,
he would have done any of that before he was a rapper.
Right. Rapping
exactly. Was not the point of him being here.
Yes.
He
thank you.
Often felt trapped.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Yes.
The words,
Thank
important
you.
shit that he said was taken less seriously simply because
Right. Or
he
taken
said
out of
him as a
context.
rapper.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So to fight for that
Right.
does him a disservice. And
Right.
I'm sure Kendrick has seen it will do yourself a disservice too.
Yeah.
Right. But it's
Yeah.
it is
what
feels
we
like
want. It is
Kendrick
what a lot of young men want.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
He run around like he Pac.
Right. I mean, he
Yeah.
put a crown of thorns around his head.
I was gonna say it feels like he's going the other way with it, to where he's like
He's not learning.
he's not. Yeah.
He's not learning.
He's not.
Yeah, and I don't,
learning,
and I want to like approach this like from a place of understanding and like compassion, because like I said, that was the Tupac 2.0 was the motivating force, and it did come from a more, I feel like there was an egotistical or narcissistic tinge to my journey. Right, you want to be right, you want to be neo
community.
Right,
And
exactly.
That's what
right.
the pressure comes from.
Yeah.
It's not just being rich or being the greatest rapper alive.
Right.
The thing about the GOAT is
Right.
that you are looked at as a mixture between like Rakim, like best lyricist, but also Malcolm X. Like we
Right.
need to go
Right.
from
Right.
one boy in the hood to one man leading
Right.
a nation
Right.
of millions
Right.
to freedom, and that is unrealistic and cruel.
Right.
Yes.
It's
Right.
cruel to allow our young boys
Right.
to believe
Yeah.
that this is what is asked of them.
Right.
Right.
And then you see him on this latest album, like trying to backtrack from that. He's like saying stuff like, "I'm not. I can't be
right,
that."
right.
for you,"
Well,
which
right.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, but
As
this
you
is
should.
right. But this is where I want to get in. This is the connection I want to make though, because he's been doing that since for multiple albums. Yeah, since Section 80, he's been on this thing of like, oh, you want me to whoa, like that's not me, and like,
Right.
you know, the overnight activist line that he had and all that. So
Yeah.
okay, we see that. What I don't want us having the philosophy and like understanding that we have, what I don't want is for other MCs or rappers or entertainers or whatever, Kendrick, beyond Kendrick, to one, get wrapped up in the aesthetics and image of a martyr or whatever, without actually having any skin in the game, for one. But then the second point is, you know, you don't have skin in the game just like for the image. You have skin in the game so that we can be free.
Right.
And I don't want these folks to be dissuaded, whether it's because of how Pac got killed or because of judgment that they face from so-called activists or quote-unquote organizers, however people might identify, to where they're compartmentalizing all these different things and losing the fact that the whole thing, like the whole push for systems change has to meet with your life and your labor and your community.
Right.
You know?
Yes,
It has
it's
to
not gonna
connect.
happen when you're the GOAT. You can't start it
Yeah.
when
Right.
you're the GOAT. Start the work. Oh, now that I'm
Right.
the GOAT, let me
Right. You can't like.
get my community together. Like,
Right.
Right.
And that idea extends. Funnily enough, it's like that idea extends to the mindsets of so many young black people in particular, as it relates to, like, you know, it's just that base thing of I got to get up and I got to get lots of money, as much money as possible.
for multiple people, for multiple
Right.
lifetimes.
Right. Myself and then we're getting into that conversation about like quote unquote black capitalism of like,
Right.
you know, if I'm the person with all the money and all the power, then from the top down I can reign.
Yeah.
You know,
I can get
revolutionary
all the homies
change
jobs
to
and I
every
can
to-
do-
Jesus
yeah.
of the hood right now.
right to
Right.
everyone. And it's like this, one of the first, you know, earliest black radicals within, you know, the quote unquote leftist tradition, George Woodby, you know, was pointing out in the early 1900s, like, you know, he's like, look at all these poor white people. You think if there's all these poor white people and working class white people in the world, and there's all these rich white people, that if for some reason more of our people get rich, we're all just gonna get free?
Right.
All you got to do is just look at the disparities in the white community,
Right.
quote unquote white community. You know,
White community.
like look look over there. It's like, so why would you? And he's like saying why in whatever year it was, like I think it was 1901. He's saying this shit.
Right.
He's saying like he's like saying like more Jay-Z's and Oprah's and whatever. Like that's not gonna.
And people don't understand. It's only because Pac was murdered that we didn't see the logical outcome of his. Like he needs to be crystallized. In that point where he could have went this way, he could have went that way.
Yeah,
what I was talking about the other day.
One individual. He like whatever y'all think was gonna happen was gonna fail because he had no one else with him.
Right.
No, there was really no community.
Right.
Holding him up. It was him as one man.
Right. And just like getting deliberately isolated even further than he already was.
Because like the pedestal is isolating. Like,
yeah, exactly.
And that does go into another conversation about like. Yeah, there is a distinction between the ideas you espouse and, you know, the world that you describe that you know, wanting to live in one day and like the practice of actually getting there. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a lot of people, especially now more than ever before, who talk about how much they hate capitalism and you know, how much, you know, we need to overthrow this system or whatever. And they can't even do the most basic things around cooperating with other people, you know, trying to make decisions with other people and trying to get a feel for what someone wants or thinks, you know, someone beyond themselves,
right?
You know, especially with like younger people, I feel like, you know, millennials and Zoomers, like people in our age groups. And but like that's another thing. It's like there is a big difference between thinking communally or whatever word you want to use in the abstract and then living that way in practice.
Right.
You know? And I'm saying that because like now more than ever before, radical ideas are super in vogue. Mm-hmm. So you have so many talking heads and personalities and people who are now just they're riding the wave.
Yeah.
But it's completely disconnected from community. It's completely disconnected from struggle. Mm-hmm. Struggle. And like struggle isn't always like
No,
it's
struggle
not.
Is the necessary.
Yeah, but and it's like I was gonna say like struggle is like there's something, there are fulfilling things that can come out of struggle.
Right.
You know, the outcome that you can achieve with other people through struggle makes it worth it. You know, but it's like we're not gonna get another world or another society or make it through ecological collapse.
By talking
about it or by or through like without struggle. Like it's not going to be easy. You're not going to be able to just hit buttons on your phone and then
it's the sacrifice needed in deindustrialization. It's the sacrifice needed for any freedom. You cannot, while being addicted and full off the master's food, like leave the master's house. Like you're full. You like this. You like this shit. You like the way, and that's the worrying thing is that people will see another hero or another single person will come up. We'll watch and nod and watch them sacrifice their corporal body for something that we have no intention of rising to.
It goes beyond that like paternalistic like sitting back. It's even more so like we don't even want the shit.
We
don't even want the shit.
Thank you for reminding me that I do want a better world, but I'm not gonna do that shit and
have fun. It's like have fun.
Yeah, have fun with that shit. Knowing what's gonna happen to this person for speaking up and getting y'all excited and getting you guys whipped up. People are sacrificing their lives to give you dreams, to give you bigger dreams than what we are able to dream of now. And I don't blame less and less people for saying that shit ain't worth it because
you can empathize with it.
I can empathize. Oh yeah, 100%. For me, for what I want that is different than Pac, I want to survive. I want to see what I can do by not. I mean, he was able to in 4 years, 4 to 6 years, take my family out of poverty, and I appreciate him for that.
Yeah.
But that cost him his life. Holy, dude, there's no way. There's no way to sparse that. So we have to.
It's also we need to be here to see anything through.
Hey man, my mother
see
says this
anything
all the
through.
time. We would all rather have Pac here today as a substitute teacher in Baltimore. Than take all the music back. Like we still got his brain, we still got his mind, right?
Right.
I'd rather
100%. And there can be that collective aspect if he's still here.
Right.
Right. And we can try to live in that way of thinking, but we don't. Yeah. We don't wish that Pac was still alive in Cuba teaching. Right. We want Pac to still be alive to give us another album or comment on the way the world is today.
Yeah.
We don't, I don't think we value ourselves that much either.
Yeah. Speaking of Cuba, not to like derail and be silly, but like another one of my earliest Pac memories. I remember my mom used to have, I guess they just started being friends again, but used to have this friend. I would hang out with her son Muhammad, and I remember like we were just like hanging out outside, and there was just a lull in the conversation, and he just looked up at the moon and he just goes, Pac is up there, right?
The moon?
He just like pointed at the moon, and I was a child, so I was like, oh, for real?
Oh, for real?
That's cool, man. That's really cool. So like I didn't even hear the Cuba theory before.
It's
just some wild shit.
Tupac on the moon.
The copium
I'm
of that.
Write a musical.
It's sad. It's sad. We wouldn't know what to do with them if the brother did come back. We really wouldn't know what to say to him. We wouldn't know what to ask of him.
I mean, we don't even know that he would be the same person.
Or would want to do anything for us or speak for us or speak to us.
Yeah. I mean, if he could see like what this shit is like after he's gone, obviously it would be different if he was still here, but like if he could see just this trajectory that we've gone on since he was alive, like
he'd be aware that it was not worth it.
Yeah.
Get up on that soapbox.
Not that way, right?
Yeah, not that way.
Not worth it. Not worth his life.
Literally giving my life to it. Like
the martyrdom.
Yeah,
right.
The martyrdom, man. It's not. I can't be the one to say if it's worth it. He's my uncle. Of course I want him around, but I wouldn't want his fate for anyone else.
Especially again for the millionth time, especially understanding that what is going to get us free isn't coming through one person.
Right.
And it's not coming through martyrdom either.
Right. It's not coming through martyrdom.
Not that kind of martyrdom.
Right. Right. Yeah. Where it's like Jesus Christ.
Yeah, literally. I die for your sins, damn it. And for your ignorance and for your lack of action and awareness.
Right. The other thing and I don't know if I am reiterating another point, but maybe if anything I'm just fleshing it out, but like just thinking about what all of this is for, even like the narrative around Tupac and like what he was here for, I always I know for me the word I'm always using is freedom and like wanting to be free, and like I have a particular idea about what freedom is, and like my idea about freedom is like the equality of unequals, understanding that we're all different. We need structures in place in a society that works to meet those differences and making sure that our basic needs are taken care of, but also that we're comfortable in that. It's not like it's like a subsistence type deal, but like our we don't have to worry about our needs being taken care of, but also freedom is like being free to do things and also being free from things like coercive power and exploitation, violence, all these different things. But all these different pieces that go into freedom for me are reliant upon practices of cooperation and practices of direct democracy.
You cannot be free alone.
Right.
There's no freedom alone.
And that's the exact point that I'm making. I'm tying it just right to what you were saying on that thing of like.
And we can contrast that with justice, which we were talking about earlier, which
Right.
is like this notion of like they can exploit and abuse us for however many hundreds of years and then just write a check, you know?
And keep
like
exploiting and abusing some black people, just
Exactly.
not us, and we got our check. And
exactly.
okay,
And
keep
like
exploiting Haiti, we
Right.
just don't care. Yeah.
and
Right.
like the number will never feel right.
No.
And
the
once
moment we get it, we'll be like, damn, we got scammed. We should ask.
exactly.
Fuck.
Exactly.
Now you can't go back. Now you can't get another round of.
and then you spend it, or it goes into whatever bullshit, and you're right back where you started, and now you can't even complain about it.
But it's also, justice is like that word under our social, economic, and political systems is based off of a series of myths,
right.
you know? Like even when we're talking about reparations, we're talking about being paid in a fiat currency.
Yeah. For generations of work. I don't even know how that works.
Right.
And I don't want to get into the philosophy of, I want to get into a heterodox economics conversation and talking about what value is and like what money is, because we don't even have that figured out.
Right.
But like the idea that you could distill that hundreds of years of pain and suffering and genocide and torture and toil into a number, an input, an output,
To make it right, to make it even.
disconnected from the earth, disconnected from how we relate to the earth and the planet. I mean, it's ridiculous. But I was pointing at that thing around freedom and the practices that we can use to work towards it, because now more than ever before, it's so crucial for us to like make the practical connection, I feel, between like whatever we're imagining being free is, or like another system, and in our day to day with the people around us,
Try to sneak it into.
yeah.
Just
How are we how are we reflecting that?
Right.
How are we relating to each other? How are we treating each other? How does that even reflect the society or the world that we're saying that we want to live in?
Right.
And not just as activism, as this compartmentalized thing, but as something that's fully integrated with our labor, with our time, our energy, our resources,
your leisure, your consumption,
Right.
everything.
right?
Yeah.
And I feel like, again, circling back to the Kendrick thing, it is frustrating to kind of like see people like him and others who they're almost like carrying on a mythological tradition.
Right.
They're turning it mythological. I mean, they're
Right.
accepting the mythological.
They're accepting it. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's a tradition, and not even like it's disconnected from the shit that I just described.
Right.
It's entirely
Holy.
disconnected. Yeah.
Right.
Right. So when you come with these sorts of ideas or statements, it's like the eyes glaze over, like charity. It's like it just goes, oh, you're activism, charity.
Right.
It's like moralistic shit. Oh, good for you, man.
Yeah,
You're
right.
good for you.
I'm trying to be.
Right.
the
That's good.
It's like
No, but just like, oh no, like that's good for you that you're trying to do good in the world. Good for you,
Yeah.
man. You're special. I
Right.
support you.
and people
You know,
get
it's
the
like-
impression it's not even for their place to
Right.
participate.
Exactly. And then it doesn't help that there's an entire ecosystem and economy around quote unquote activism and quote unquote organizing and quote unquote revolutionaries. It all just gets completely
There's a
compartmentalized.
industrial complex. Industrial
Right.
complex.
Right.
Like,
yeah. Yeah.
And your fist in the air can be,
Right.
on the stock market soon enough, brother.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Shit
Could
up
be
in the air
NFT.
enough. Yeah, put that shit up in there enough. We'll figure
Dog,
out.
I bet if you Google right now, it's an NFT already.
Oh,
It
Yeah, of
exists.
course.
It exists.
There's 1,000 fist NFTs,
Kaepernick.
BLM, NFTs.
Right.
Shit, I mean, Malik was texting me the other day, like the numbers from fucking. I don't even know how to phrase it. The looting, the BLM
Oh my
network looting of the
Oh.
people. Like, I mean,
Oh yeah.
80 million? 80 million? They spent $4 million on operations.
I mean, out of 80 million.
Yeah, like a nonprofit, a charity, ostensibly or whatever. You know, you are supposed to spend the money,
right?
You get on operations.
It was already depressing. It was already depressing enough knowing that they weren't going to spend. Even if they had spent the money and used it, it wouldn't have been used in a liberatory or impactful way.
Right.
But to then see the itemized list of where the money actually went.
Looting, looting is the way of
right.
We don't make anything here. We don't.
But in a way, that's like an extreme, fucked up. It's like the worst of the worst example of what I'm talking about here. Yeah. You know, it's like one thing if like we're talking about individuals dealing in optics and like having individual careers off of that. Well, this was a whole organization
transferring
that took
money from
multi-millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of dollars, where it was assumed that it was whatever the money was going to be used for was going to be tied to the social, to the economic, to the political.
Right.
Nothing.
And it was just, it ended up just being a looting.
It's easy. I'm sure it's hard as well, but you know, if you want that for yourself and for your institution, black or not, it's incredibly easy to let that way be the way of operations.
Right. I mean, because
they will probably not be punished for that at all. Like that's, even though we clearly see it as criminal and evil, there's probably nothing.
Yeah. It'll be like
no recourse.
You know, it'll be some tweets.
Yeah. That's all it's been.
Tweets. That's it. Right.
And it's like we were also texting about this of like, like who do you think taught them this shit? Who showed them the ropes when their shit started getting hot?
Right.
Who amongst the foundations and the Democratic Party and the nonprofit industrial complex brought them in and said, okay, so here's what you're gonna want to do. Okay, so here's what you're gonna want. You're gonna want to put that over there.
You're gonna make a text number 543, text BLM at 543, and then you can pretty much just get any kind of money you want to.
Right, but then
everything into this spreadsheet right here, and we're just gonna take care of it. You know, you just kind of, just jazz up this column right here, and then you're good.
Even if most of the money they took was from guilty white people, it's still.
Yeah, but I was right about to make the point though, like the outcome being like, who cares or whatever is just a result of that. It's like, oh well, this is just how it goes. This is how This is how This is how we operate.
Get used to it quick.
Right. You just messed up your first time. It's okay. No, you have enough capital that we can move around this.
Next quarter will be much more equitable.
Right. You had a boo-boo. You had a boo-boo.
Right. Yeah, scary things, man. Scary things.
Yeah. Doomer things.
Doomer things, but if anything, I want to look at y'all two young men who know better. And I want to believe that y'all will do better. And I know y'all will do better. Y'all will not throw yourselves.
He's saying that like we already got we got a whole a slush fund or some shit. Like,
but I never want to see promising young men who want to help their people throw themselves into the fire of individualism and the fire of,
and that can come out of a jadedness. That can come out of it. You said doomer shit. Like, I've seen it so many times just within the last 5-6 years. People who have a certain social currency that leads to them getting careers or whatever, and then once they get up there and they see there's a lack of, I'm not inside their head. No, I was gonna say no community, or they feel they just kind of just shit. Van Jones is probably an extreme example of that.
Yeah.
It's not getting up there that's the problem. It's one, having the morals before you get up there, getting up there, keeping those morals, and then proliferating those morals.
It's also about being specific about what you mean when you say getting up there means, because it could be social capital, but someone like Van Jones, like when you're saying getting up there, he pursued a corporate media career, and like he's so he's going up like a corporate ladder that is completely disconnected from the values and principles he espoused in the revolutionary principles.
He espoused revolutionary principles?
He used to be a Maoist.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
VJ?
Yeah.
Huh?
Our brother VJ?
VJ.
Yeah. Granted, we don't rock with, authoritarian shit, but
But like, it wasn't what he is.
Right.
It wasn't what he is now.
Yeah,
right.
gotcha.
Yeah. But on that point, like, I'm actually thinking about, because the Doomer piece is like making me think about jadedness, and then also thinking about like the mental health element, of that, and like processing that, like the psychological impact of that. And I know you mentioned in passing to me before that like when people talk about Tupac, like, and I've heard most interviews, not just like with him, but like people who knew him talking about him. And one thing people always talk about is how he was high all the time. He was smoking all the time.
Right.
He was like high all the time. And like, and I know you mentioned to me before, like in passing, that his struggle with addiction is like, and it's true, it's like, it's not even a footnote. It's like people are just assume that it's like, it's normal. It's like, oh yeah.
It is, and it is.
Right.
Addiction is
Right.
normal and assumed.
Right. Assumed. Right.
If you look out at a lot of young people our age, especially of our complexion, ask a regular weed smoker to stop smoking weed.
Right.
And they will react like an addict,
Right.
And Pac did more things than smoke weed, and I'm not going to put his business out there, but addiction is, unfortunately for a lot of us, it's the least of our problems. There are addicts living way better lives
Right.
than we will as addicts.
Right.
There are rich addicts on Park Avenue that can be addicts and, can be comfortable. But so when you have a culture that self-medicating, and you just know you don't really have a recourse for your mental and emotional issues, you leave, like, it's implied. It's implied that you're supposed to be an addict. Like, go drink, like, go smoke, like, get out of my face. Like, stop asking for, what do you want, a school counselor? What do you want, a court mandated therapist? Like, get the fuck out of here.
Right.
And that becomes another mark of individualism. I will, on my own, smoke this weed.
I'm gonna recede into myself.
Recede
into my addiction.
Maybe I write something. That's that's for y'all, but maybe I don't. And it's, all these things can have a through line, like you say, and addiction is a hatred that kids get that fucks everybody around them. When you neglect the kid, when you
and I have addiction in my family, and like personal trauma related to addiction in my family, and again, not to put any person's business out there from my family or from my side of things, but I largely hypothesize that that comes from the experiences in the early years, and trauma in the early years. And I was having an argument with a friend of mine recently, and I'm not going to get into the weeds of it, but it got to a point in the conversation where I was just trying to make this, because he was on some shit of like, oh, well, if I get shit right, in the house, it's all about the house. If it's right in the house, then everything else will be fine. Like my child will be fine. It was essentially what he was arguing. And the same person had told me about trauma that they had been through in public school, and how that informed, and this is a person who's an addict also, and how that informed their experiences and their struggles. And I also had trauma in public school. I had abusive teachers and things like that. And I'm saying that to say that, and I'm in therapy and I talk with my therapist about this. You know, there's this implicit assumption with some people, I feel, that, you know, you go into therapy or treatment or whatever, you're coping, and it's about you. It's almost like you're just supposed to be adapting to these systems. Yeah. The systems are assumed. Yeah. Here, I'm going to help you adapt to it and deal with it.
Right.
Whereas, like, I feel like an actually liberatory healing process, whether it's therapy or some sort of treatment, is going to connect your trauma, your addiction, and your pain to the broader society and structures and institutions and social relations in the society that you're a part of, you know? And that gets to a deeper conversation about the failures of the healthcare system in this country under capitalism, and the issues in terms of mental health, quote unquote, mental health treatment in this country under capitalism, and how it's completely divorced.
And also the bare naked reality that, you know, you talk to me about dual power a lot. We have no outside institution to deal with these things outside of us linking together and smoking some weed. That's all we got.
Right.
Right.
I can talk to you about it. We want to go for a drink. You want to smoke?
Yeah.
We know we can't do shit for each other. We can't. I cannot hold you up in the way that you need to be held up.
Right.
And it leads, you know, like you said, you retreat further inside.
Yeah.
You don't want to ask people to do something impossible.
Yeah.
You don't want to look on their face and see that they are helpless to help you.
Yeah. I mean, dog, that's been my experience over the past few years, is like, you know, the more studying you do, the more like reading you do, the more just self-educating, and like you just kind of get this sense, like, and like I say this having hope that something's gonna give, that's what something that we do or somebody aligned with us does is gonna just move the needle in some way. So I have that hope, but I also have that there's that feeling that nobody else is like with you.
Yes.
Nobody is really like, nobody's about it, and
it's not incentivized. There's no organizational structure for it.
Yeah. And even the people that say they are
just all atomized and coping.
Exactly.
Yeah. The people who you know need help are not even, can't be there enough to think of solutions. They're too deep in the fucking blender.
Like, I mean, I'm thinking back to a couple years ago when there was like a very earnest trend on social media of like people telling their friends that if we talk and you're like, what is the word I'm looking for?
Yes, I know what you're talking about. I already know what you're talking about.
Yeah, just like if I do emotional labor for you,
emotional labor,
you owe me money. Right. Essentially, that was like a real trend on the internet, and I'm just like.
You remember this, right?
Course,
or like
man.
you?
It's just
and I'm reflecting on like just friends that did it, like in earnest, people that really like.
And how can we make community? Like, think about this. Think about this. What is community other than emotional labor? Like, what
exactly?
What are we doing here? Who are you to me?
Like,
How is community not an emotional, social give and take?
Yeah, that you are excited to do for free. Like you would never even accept money for it.
We both need it. It's mutually beneficial.
I can see me doing this for you as an investment, money or not, in my own community.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Me being involved in my community is an investment in my community that just proliferates.
Yeah.
The more I do it and don't undercut it with bullshit like that.
Yeah.
And we are, not we, but there are so many people that parade as leftists and have eloquent speaking, whatever. that parade themselves as our comrades that
Right.
would never,
Right.
would never, much less lift a finger to physically do something, but lift a emotional finger
Right.
to do something for us. And
I've encountered many who they wouldn't even struggle with me. They cut ties with me the second that there was a bump in the road,
Right.
a disagreement.
Yeah.
that's capital.
You know?
That's capitalism. Like
Right.
their brains are smart or advanced in that way to be aware that, wait, if this was a company, yeah, I would cut you off the moment
Right.
it became unprofitable for us to do this.
Right.
I should itemize that in my daily life. I should do that to friends. I should do that to romance, relationship, my dog, whatever the fuck.
Right.
Right.
So we know that this kind of evil can be expressed in everyday life. Surely the opposite must be true.
Well, yeah,
Right.
I'm just now learning about, the whole study and focus in community mental health treatment, practices and solutions. I mean, it's like there's a whole kind of academic discipline and focus on it going right now. It's new territory for me, but it's also not in a funny way, like, and again, I always go back to the church.
Can I?
I always say it's like 1,000,001 prefaces. Yeah, sure. I guess while he pees, how I always go back to the church, and
Yeah, I've heard.
yeah, and I have this this thing about, like, yeah, with all the fucked up things going on, you had a community there, and I'm specifically thinking about the moments where, whether it's in Sunday school class or in some other group that meets in between services, or it's a men's retreat or women's retreat, there were always these spaces where people were working through their issues together.
Yeah.
And like being able to confide in one another about what was going on.
Right.
Even if people had reactionary dumbass ideas about how to deal with it,
They were at least trying.
right, there was at least this thing of, you can lean on me, we can lean into each other.
Yeah. And I wasn't as deep in the church as you were, but I did grow up like in and out of different churches, and so there was never really the really like cohesive building of community, but it was there. I had people that I knew from church and like relationships that at least my mom still has. And I think about it like now, how I would do that, how I would like achieve that same level of community, hopefully in a better context. And I just kind of like started laughing to myself, just thinking about like this. It's starting to get warm outside. People are just standing in like big groups on the sidewalk and all this shit. And I just started laughing to myself, thinking like, what if I just like walked up to this like group of people that grew up in Bushwick, and I just like, hey guys, how you doing? And just fucking like insert myself. And it's like such a silly thought, but it's like, what other option do you have in a lot of scenarios? It's like,
I don't know. I feel like it is about serving people in some way, shape, or form, but in a way that simultaneously opens up space for dialogue or celebration, and these are the baseline things that you got in the church.
Yeah.
And I actually had the thought of like, I thought you were going to say that you went into thinking about how you open up these kinds of spaces without reproducing the toxic tendencies that also define organized religion in the church.
I was trying to get a joke in, and we weren't on the same page.
Right.
But no,
Right.
I have had that conversation because when we started this whole thing, and with the live aspect,
JADED Forum Live.
Yeah, we had the whole conversation about creating church without God. Just creating that whole element of just like, here's space,
Right.
Here's space to just kind of exist and commune with each other, and where we can build on what's already there, and we can create new shit, and we don't have to dwell in all the hang-ups of this is a space of organized religion. You have to think about all this like puritanical shit that goes into it.
Right.
You can just kind of
be
and you know, there is that element of, you know, music, culture, family, all of these things, food,
right,
that can exist without that context that ultimately reinforces like white supremacy, hegemony, and all these things, you know,
hiding abuse,
right.
Patriarchy,
right,
yeah,
property.
right.
Yeah.
Did you grow up in the church?
I grew up Muslim, so.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if that was like from the start or.
Yeah, it was.
Was your whole family though isn't Muslim though?
Afeni, I don't know what the word is, because I guess converted to Christianity.
Yeah.
Around the time I was 16, but she did that on her own. We were part of the Baha'i church as well.
But your mom also?
My mom's atheist, like she doesn't.
Oh, okay.
I mean, agnostic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, this is what I figured my understanding of like Shakur family was just like there's diversity in like belief systems.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there are parts of my family that are very, you know, there's like the North Carolina part of the family, which is Baptist and still connected to, you know, our slave roots. And then there's the Philly, Baltimore, Jersey, New York family.
Right.
Which has Nation of Islam roots and, you know,
right.
And then after that. Yeah. But organized religion, nah. I mean, the Shakur family, we're only Shakurs because my great-grandfather followed Malcolm away from the nation.
Right.
His religion got more disorganized than organized in that, you know, transition.
Right.
So, yeah, organized religion is not really something where I've ever found freedom in. I don't think I ever will. But I do find freedom in community, and that's what
we were talking about while you took a piss.
Exactly.
We were fleshing that out.
Yeah.
You know,
I could have heard if you were here.
Man,
You wasn't taking
I was
a
holding
piece.
that shit for an hour. How much time y'all got? Because I'm gonna have to skate soon.
I'm curious how long it's been going.
3 hours.
It's been a little under 3 hours. We started around 8:30.
Yeah.
28:30.
So we can probably close it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any like final thoughts or.
No, my thoughts aren't final.
My thoughts are ongoing, my brother. It never ends.
We can end with a developing thought.
Yeah, my brother.
I'll end. I have a thought.
Yeah, give us a developing thought.
Hey, look, Tebe.
Oh shit.
I don't know what you doing,
I really don't.
but you gonna have to pull up at some point. I'm gonna look right in the camera too as I say this. You gonna need to pull up, my brother.
Hey yo, Tebe, we don't have this relationship where I can call you out on camera. And shit,
no.
like, pull up, nigga, pull up.
Yeah, we were supposed to have Earl Sweatshirt here with us, and there's actually connection, you know, through Layla Steinberg, and I wanted to talk about that. The Layla
connection.
Yeah, and like the Pac connection, and you know, because I actually have a connection to Layla going some years back.
Really?
Yeah, through music stuff. Okay. But yeah, maybe another time. I mean, he's out here a lot, so I'm sure the next time he's back,
I'm gonna ambush him. I'm gonna come out the mist, the fog.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what we need the fog for.
That's what we need the fog for. Look who saw the future.
Yeah, he just comes up from underneath the table in the fog.
I think I need a chair.
Right.
Yeah, you know. Well, I don't know if y'all know how he is. He's very elusive.
Yeah.
You know, you have to just catch him.
Yeah.
Because I was literally just with him. Like, I was with him like the whole night. But anything involving like the phone, he's like a grandpa, you know?
Yeah. That's fair.
But, yeah, nigga.
Yeah, nigga.
Yeah, nigga. You better come on here, nigga. And we'll show you, nigga.
This is a call
the temple
out.
of motherfucking Christ. Better
calling
trust
you
and
out.
believe.
calling
On my
you out,
purple
brother.
homie, he keep a turban on. Parasangs, 300 parasangs, ta. How you doing? That's Busy Bone.
That's Busy Bone.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Do you want to do a clap?
You could do a clap. Let's do a clap.
Okay, it's not on the 3. It's after the 3.
It's after the 3, just so.
And
Like,
this is for editing purposes, but now I think it's just like a it's a
kinda-
kumbaya staple in the show.
It's become
They
a
keep it in the
tradition
final
now.
edit. They just keep it in the final edit.
Look,
Us
man,
clapping.
That's just what it is.
Yeah, I don't
know.
mind.
I don't mind it.
I don't
I'd love
mind.
to be a part of a tradition.
Yeah, I feel
Right.
like maybe I kind of like finessed it into the, into the final cut. Maybe that's what I
I like it. I
do. Yeah,
like it.
you know,
Thank you for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me, y'all. It was
By the
really
way,
it was really great to have you here,
conversation I
man.
had with y'all.
And it should happen again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Absolutely should.
You know, it's
Yeah.
worth getting on the train for an hour.
Yeah.
For it.
On God.
Oh God.
On God. All right.
All right, let's go. All right, it's after the 3.
Yeah.
So everybody's clear. I'm talking to you. Oh shit.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, 1, 2.